Hey everybody, welcome. It's time for the Gamers Guild Arizona Grand Tournament Top 8. I'm going to be bringing you one match from each of the rounds, so we're going to be seeing the top 8, top 4, and the finals today. As you can see on the screen, I was lucky enough actually to make it into the top 8, so you'll be seeing me at least once today. Before we jump into this, I just want to give a huge shout out to Gamers Guild. It's been so amazing to have a big tournament in the US so close to the game's release. They really did an amazing job, and their new Phoenix location is incredible, probably the best game store I've ever been to. It was an awesome event, and yeah, at this point, we'd already played 6 rounds, best of 3. So I think, yeah, that's a lot of games. It was like 14 games already at this point when we were jumping into this. Yeah, most of the day already over. So just a couple more things before we hop in. If you enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe and watch out in the next couple of days. I'll be having lots of deck profiles show up on my channel. I have the 10th place Trace deck, 9th place Kojo, as well as one of the Waru decks and Fen decks from the top 8. So yeah, be looking out for those. And I'll also still be doing my meta breakdown for the event, probably early next week or something like that. So yeah, be looking out for a lot more content. But with that, let's jump into these games. So I'm actually going to be playing these on double speed. The top 8 was like 5 hours of footage. It was actually even a little more than that with the breaks and things, but I cut it out. Um, so yeah, at this point, I'm like, I just don't know if I can put that much time into my schedule to commentate for 5 hours, and I'm sure that for a lot of you, it'll be more enjoyable to watch at this speed anyway. So yeah, jumping in this first game, it's me versus King Evan, and so yeah, let me quick pull up his Thoth for you guys to see. So yeah, it's a pretty cool unique. It summons 2 tokens on its side when the expedition doesn't move forward. So yeah, you can really like flood your board quick, and it's really good too for like Robin Hood now. If he plays that on the next day, your characters other than Thoth are going to have tough 1. So Sticky Note Seals actually wouldn't be able to remove a Robin Hood right here. So yeah, that's just like a pretty strong card to be able to set up on the first day. I do think that it would have been better for King Evan to have played the Thoth on the same side as my Legate. I was able to get that advancement on the first day because I had the 1-drop, 2-drop. And if he had the Thoth on the same side as me right now, he'd already be winning essentially on like both sides. And so, yeah, it would just be like a more favorable position than this. He is pretty much guaranteed to take the hero side at this point, but it also makes it a lot easier for me to be able to win one of the sides as well. And yeah, I had so much stats that I even felt comfortable sleeping my Legate here. At this point, we'll see, yeah, what the return play is. Yeah, and I mean, since I am going first this day, the interaction with Thoth and like the removal spell, it's not going to come up here, but yeah, maybe we'll see it in one of the later games or something like that. Holding on to 1 mana means that I will still be able to play my Trooper. So yeah, Evan here trying to think about what to do. He's only already tied in the forest region, so could be pretty easy to advance alongside of me that day. It's not the worst position though for me, and I was comfortable making that because I am ahead by 1. So if he double advances and I single advance, we are still in the same position. And then I'm going to have like a huge Legate the next day, which could help out a lot. Pretty much forced here to play out my Trooper. Otherwise, yeah, Evan would be moving without having to commit another card. And so, yeah, even though I'm going down a resource here, he's kind of split between deciding if he'll be advancing or sleeping a bureaucrat this day. So yeah, not a position you want to be in. And oh my goodness, yeah, it must have been a little bit of a brick in hand. I'm not sure what Evan's holding on to, but just floating 3 mana there, not setting up a bureaucrat. Yeah, that's a pretty poor way to stop. A pretty poor way to start this top 8 match for Evan. So we were actually round 2 opponents in Swiss as well. And yeah, during that match, Trickster me, I was able to go 2-0 against Evan. And that was his only loss in Swiss. So it's kind of a little bit of a grudge match here where, yeah, he's been able to go undefeated since that loss and now just trying to like overcome his demons and see if he can push through and make it until the top 4. There was an intentional draw, though, in the final round, since it was Swiss with a top 8. Some of the players knew that they could make it in with an X1-1 record, and so, yeah, so basically 3 wins in a draw since we last played. And if you're curious, my record was 5-1 as well. So I had won the first 5 rounds, and then the 2 undefeated players, we like went up against each other in the 6th round, but I actually lost that one 2-1 to someone that you might see later on the stream. But yeah, because of that, we're on opposite side of the brackets now. I'm going to be the 2nd seed, and then ISIS is going to be on the other side in the 1st seed. You'll see here we've been able to establish a Robin Hood, which is feeling pretty good, especially since we already have the expedition lead. By the end of this stream, you guys are going to be like expert Waru pilots, or even if you hate the deck, I'll try and give you all the tips to be able to beat it. Yeah, because we're going to see a decent number of Warus showing up in this top 8 stream. And so, yeah, definitely, stick around, get the tips. We're going to be figuring out all the ins and outs of how to, play into and as Waru. You can see here, once again, Evan was setting up that powerful unique card. And so I chose to play my Robin to the other side. And now you can see it definitely helped out. If I had played on the same side, I would have been behind. But now I am ahead on one side, and there's the tax going. Seems like a perfect time to set up a sleeping bureaucrat, since it has the effect when it doesn't move forward. I do want to be playing that on the side with Thoth. And yeah, rough spot. Having to use removal on an awake Robin. It does mean Evan now still has 3 more mana to work with. But yeah, that was like a pretty expensive play, and I can actually just put the Robin Hood back out asleep. I am losing on the hero side and tied on the other, and so this could be an opportunity a little bit for Evan to catch up, but I feel comfortable making this play because I do have such a big expedition lead. And so yeah, at this point, Evan worried more about the board. I think it is a smart choice. Sleeps the attorney on the same side as the Robin. I am I think that you have to make that play because you need the draw. It would have been nice if you could have lined it up with the gate, since the stats are like better there. I am actually still moving at this point with the extra 4 stat that Robin has, but pretty much what you have to do in that situation. So we've got 3 cards in hand, it looks like. Yeah, if you're curious, throughout this match, I'm going to be putting my cards kind of in between the landmark and the reserve zones. A lot of times it gets a little confusing, like what's your mana and what's your hand. So I actually learned that trick from Justin, that's like an empty spot that you can, place your cards in where nothing really goes. And so oftentimes I just place my hand there to kind of let me focus on like the board and what's going on. We see a sticky note. It looked like that was a sticky note was being played, but yeah, maybe that was being, or maybe something. It looks like there was like a slight error on the, going back because we missed, placing the token. I think we just like skipped a little bit ahead there. So yeah, sticky notes will be the play, but yeah, the recruits can come out. Strategically, if I hadn't seen my opponent's sticky note, I would have played my recruit to that side. And so I did play it there because I didn't want to like take advantage of the extra knowledge, but knowing that sticky notes would be played, I probably would want this to be on the other side, but I didn't want to like take advantage of that information I shouldn't have had. So I just kind of went with what I would have normally done. Now we're going to see the Quetzal coming out from me. Quetzal's actually really strong, and I grew to appreciate it a lot throughout the tournament. A lot of times I've kept my sticky note seals as my going second on the second day answer to Robin Hood, but I think that playing a Quetzal on the opposite side, or even the same side, is pretty much just as good, because while you will be facing the tax, you'll be far enough ahead on the board that it kind of like evens out for the fact that you're not playing as expensive of cards on the following day. And that also preserves your resources a little better. So I'm not sure exactly which plays the best, but I think even in one of some of my matches at the end, I started keeping the Quetzal instead of the sticky notes, especially because if your opponent doesn't draw Robin Hood, then the Quetzal is just better as well. So yeah, something to think about when you're picking your hands. The hardest matches I played during this tournament were ones where I was low on resources, and the easiest way for that to happen is when you have too many spells. And so yeah, sometimes I think when you can get away with it, keeping something like a Quetzal instead of a sticky note can be a good way to just keep your hand healthy and your options in the late game. And speaking of drawing cards and keeping your hand healthy, Ozma is an incredible draw card. I feel like it's probably the best one in the game. So yeah, taking advantage of that here. Looking at this board, it's really good for us. Actually, we aren't in Mountain, so we are just tied with our opponent on that companion side. But it looks like we're winning on the left and already have the Quetzal asleep as well. So yeah, in a good position. If you see there, we are rolling these dice when we move expeditions. So that's something we were kind of doing in this tournament, just because a lot of the tumult cards aren't perfectly symmetrical on the back, and you can try and fix that by putting them in the sleeve, but then if you know which end is up, you can also kind of know which way they're facing too. So a way to get around that is we just put a dice on each of them at the start of the match, and then when you go into that tumult card and flip it over, we would roll the dice, and usually what I did is if it was even, we'd keep it facing the same way, and if it was odd, we'd turn it around, just so that you wouldn't really have to worry about people having like an unfair advantage, especially when you don't know your opponent necessarily and you don't know like the cards they're going to be using. Strong start here with the Quetzal getting us some extra tokens. So yeah, we're like loaded up already. And yeah, I really liked Order Spy all tournament. It is a little expensive at times, but I think that resources can be really important, and most decks have key cards. I think Attorney's probably the second best bureaucrat to Robin Hood. And so, yeah, getting to get rid of that, even if you're playing like a slightly understated card, can just be really good overall. I think we see now, it looks like Evan only has 2 cards in hand. And so, yeah, with the amount of mana he has, it might be like making his turn a little awkward, or he'll probably be pretty sad to see that attorney go. At this point, down 2 expeditions is a lot of pressure and pretty far behind on the board as well. We'll be just playing that Ozma again from the reserve to keep lengthening our lead. Ozma is an interesting card because it feels pretty bad in your opening hand. And keeping is definitely a bit of an investment. A lot of times I do actually just put it in the mana because I think I really like 1-drop, 2-drop openers. And at that point, you don't have a lot of cards left in your hand. And so if you keep something for day 2, you probably don't have a spot for Ozma. So it's like kind of hard. It's like a card you often don't hold on to, but you want to see it later. You might notice here I do have some signatures on some of my recruits. I just was having a lot of like people I played or friends sign them throughout the day. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on there. Another Ozma, just going to keep our hand full. You'll see like we have a lot of mana, and with this card draw, we'll just be able to keep playing 1 per day. At this point, I haven't slept anything yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if I have like a frog or something in the hand, or I mean, actually, I'm just probably going for the kill here, as you can see. Yeah, looking at this board, the opportunity was there, and yeah, with this trooper and things, that's actually going to be game 1. Our opponent's shown us the Robin Hood, and we were so far ahead on the board and put so much pressure all game that they never got to play it. So really bad there that last day too, when we got rid of one of their reserve resources and they had the Robin in hand that they didn't have an opportunity to play. Yeah, just not in a good position. So that's going to be great. Starting up 1 game during the tournament, we're playing that if you lose game 1 or game 2, you'll pick in the next game who goes first. So our opponent wisely chooses to have us go first. And also in top 8, whoever's the higher seed gets to pick on the first round who goes first. So I'm a little surprised. I mean, our opponent, I guess this is a fair play. Our opponent going on the opposite side of us, they definitely could have played to the same side because both characters are going to get an even amount of stats on the board. And so that would have been like a little bit more of a controlling play to slow the game down, but instead just trying to really lock down that side as well. And so it's kind of guaranteeing we'll both be trading the next day. Quetzal, I'm actually only running 2 of in my deck. I much prefer the 1-drop, 2-drop opener because I found that if you get behind, you really have to work hard in the late game to double advance and beat out your opponent. So here's the Robin, and I actually feel really bad about this. I didn't even realize until now. I literally just paused the recording and was like reading this thought that I had on the screen. So I'm pretty sure it's the same one, and that Robin should have had tough 1, but it was obviously with a unique. My first time ever playing against this card, and the first time I read it, I only really paid attention to the token effect because I didn't think the other one would come up. And so I guess that technically that Robin, it should have cost 5 for me to cast that, and I shouldn't have been able to make that play. I don't think it ends up being a huge deal because we're still like on even footing here. But yeah, like I do feel a little bad there, but that is one of the things about uniques. You probably really need to know what your own do, especially because yeah, like there, if Evan had like let me know like, oh yeah, that sticky note is too expensive to play, I would have like taken it back to my hand, of course, and like made a different action. But yeah, I never even realized until just now in watching this back that yeah, theoretically that was an illegal play. Now we're just returning the favor though. I play my Robin now, and Evan is going to send that straight to reserve. And you see though, I accidentally put in the discard. We're going to grab it back in a little bit when I remember. So yeah, there it's coming back. We've got the frog out. It was a pretty favorable trade for us because we had a 1-drop and Evan didn't, letting us kind of get a slight advantage here on the board again. So now both of us having a Robin in reserve, not a great time to be the second player, but Evan, instead of just leading out with the Robin, choosing to instead use the spy to get rid of mine. So yeah, a pretty interesting and strong play. It also blocks us and sets up an advancement, trading favorably into the frog. At this point, I know I'm losing that side, and so I just set up a thought to try and bank some advantage. And the regions that I'm in are perfect for it as well, since the next day I'll be in the forested mountains. So yeah, it seems like a pretty strong play. It's really just a lot of back and forth in this game. And yeah, here we see our opponent doing the same now. They set up their unique Thoth on the other side. And so yeah, we looks like we're going to be setting it up to be trading expeditions again, but trading this day and likely the next day as well. Yeah, the unique cards, it was interesting playing in a tournament with them. A lot of my practicing and previous experiences have been before uniques, playing in events with just like 15 or even 18 rares. They really do shake things up a lot. And I think that I appreciate the best of 3 because oftentimes I would see my opponent's uniques in game 1 or 2 and still have a chance to adapt to them moving forward. And so, yeah, at this point too, I'd already seen Evan in Swiss, and so I was getting pretty familiar with his deck. And so, yeah, feeling a little bit better. Now I was able to actually pull off a double sleep. And so, yeah, just always trying to find a way to get slightly more advantage either in the board or in the expeditions. Here we are tied, but since we had 2 sleeping characters, we're already balanced on the hero expedition and looking to advance on the companion, which is putting a lot of pressure onto Evan. Also, because he chose to play the spy instead of the Robin on the previous day, we aren't worried about tax at this point, and while the Robin could still come out, it would probably result in us getting a 2-0, and we actually even get to set up our own first as well while still having the lead on the board. Yeah, putting a lot of pressure on Evan again. hopefully later in the stream, I can tell you guys a little bit about some of my favorite openers for Waru and kind of how to navigate that. I think that knowing the matchup today really helped me a lot to win my mirrors. I played against Waru, I believe, 3 times in Swiss. There were a lot of Warus in the event, and especially at the top tables, I faced more of them. So yeah, it was always feeling pretty good if I ever felt like I saw my opponent make a misplay or like sleep a bureaucrat at the wrong time or on the wrong side to kind of like get me a way back into the game. So hopefully we can kind of like raise some awareness about like those right plays. Now we see our opponent gonna commit the Robin, and at this point it's costing them 5, and we are ahead on the board, so we still have that board advantage. We can play out this frog and just put it to sleep, giving us 2 sleeping characters while still being set to it looks like double advance. Yeah, I'm seeing 5 for our opponent and 6 for us on the left. At this point we would have been moving on both sides. Frog Prince comes out for our opponent to go to sleep, and try and take back that side on the following day. But yeah, with this strong lead now, Evan's gonna have to kind of perform some miracles to take this game back. The Thoth being blocked does get the 2 tokens on that side for Evan, so now he is finally essentially caught up on the board, or maybe even a little ahead. But we've traded that lead on the board for a large expedition lead, which I'm pretty happy about at this point. So we see the token placements coming out. Always nice to be the second player and get to be reactive with your tokens. If you think that you have like a strong turn coming, you'll probably want to play your token on the same side as your opponent to try and like block them and go for a 2-0. But if you have a weak play, you want to kind of waste your opponent's stats and skew things as much as possible where you're all on one side and they're all on one, just to like try and guarantee that you at least get 1 as the minimum. Opponent gets the Ozma, so they've got a full roster of characters now on that hero expedition. And yeah, we'll be playing this Thoth out asleep. It's an interesting aspect of Waru where you want to play your sleeping character last so that you can pick which expedition you'll be in the next day and kind of make that calculated decision and also get around removal. But you also want to play your awake characters last so that you can see where your opponent goes and make sure you win expeditions. And so it's kind of always a balance of what's going to be more important. And yeah, here we chose to lead out with the asleep character, possibly because of like the Robin's tax pressure. Just thinking that it might be hard to win one side, and I don't want to lose this lead that I've worked so hard to acquire. So at this point, I'm prioritizing trying to win one side. I'm pretty sure here, though, I actually make an error. I did my math wrong, and I thought that I was going to be either like blocking my opponent on one side and they were moving, or we both move on one side. But I think I actually end up removing the Quetzal here because I thought that like we were in that position where we'd be moving. But in reality, I didn't. Yeah, I got those numbers wrong, and our opponent's actually going to double advance here and catch up. So we will have a board advantage and not have like totally lost our lead since we have the Thoth and they don't have a sleeping character. But I probably would have preferred to try and win at least one side there. And so yeah, I think that when it happened, I was like, oh shoot. It like at this point, it's been a lot of hours and we hadn't eaten a ton, and I don't feel like I made that many misplays. But yeah, that was definitely one of them where I would have preferred to have kept my expedition lead. With the board lead, though, it's definitely not the end of the world. But yeah, things are a lot closer than I had anticipated. You see pretty massive stacks of mana. It looks like that we might be at 9 mana at this point. And so, yeah, even though I have this Robin Hood here, Evan's still going to be able to make a lot of plays this day. I found out actually Evan's a previous Yu-Gi-Oh player, and I am as well, so that's kind of fun, just meeting a friend who kind of has like a similar background coming from another strategic card game, to Altered. I think that, yeah, like the skills definitely translated a lot. I'm definitely not trying to go for a kill or anything at this point. We still need 3 movements to win, and so yeah, it feels fine to sleep the Robin Hood and keep banking advantage. We do see here one of the techs that I think I might be like one of the only Waru players to be playing the Paper Herald between, yeah, pretty much this event and Angers as well. Maybe I can pull that quick up on the screen. So yeah, the Paper Herald, it's a 1-cost 001, which is pretty embarrassing, but it is a common 1-drop. I found that I have a lot of 4-cost and 3-cost characters. 2 of my uniques are 3-cost. And so I wanted some cheaper cards to be able to help me like kind of slow my turns down. And I actually like the support ability as well, because in the mirror match with Robin out, you can play it as like a 1-drop for 0 essentially and kind of get around the tax. A lot of my uniques care about having 4 characters on the board, like this one as well. So yeah, I'm gonna pull this up now too. And so this Paper Herald can kind of help me meet that condition, even if I'm under like a Robin Hood's pressure. Also, I am playing 1 unique Frog Prince, which meant I had less 1-drops, and so I still wanted like a 6th 1-drop in my deck. So yeah, I just have the 1 copy to help me be able to still kind of like do that pressure on day 1 against Fen in the mirror. Oftentimes, any 1-drop is going to be good enough to win an expedition, so I didn't really care that the Paper Herald stats were worse. You can see here, Kokoba, it actually has the effect of charge, able to buff up this whole board. And so my opponent, knowing that there's no shot at winning an expedition, I think this is really smart, just gets a ton of card draw with 3 Attorney out. So yeah, that's 3 more cards going into Evan's hand. Going to be a huge resource advantage. At this point, I think, yeah, you see I have 1 card in hand, but I do have this strong unique in reserve and a Robin on the field. But yeah, I think that's pretty much Evan's only shot at getting back in the game, is just like drawing such powerful cards and hoping that I draw a little dead that he can kind of catch up and turn things in his favor. Also, having 2 characters on the board means that he is starting with better stats. So yeah, if he wants to win both sides this day, that's like a pretty good way to do it. So yeah, I think that was a really strong play from Evan, and yeah, like the best thing to put me in a tough position. If I had won an expedition on the previous day and I had made a play like this, I would have been able to win the game. So that's another reason why I think it would have been smart to try and push the expeditions on the previous day. But yeah, still having at least a little bit of a expedition lead here isn't the end of the world. This Kokoba, it costs 4, you might notice, from the reserve, so it's going to be a little harder to play, especially if our opponent does drop a Robin. But yeah, we'll just kind of see what happens. We always, though, have that support ability as a backup plan if we can't afford to play the full cost. So the tokens are coming out. I can recognize that I'm in a weaker position on the board, and so I'm just trying to take one side, but since forest isn't relevant, I am actually just tied, and now we see his spy coming down really strong yet again, taking out my unique. It would have been great to use it with the Herald, but at this point, I'm so low on resources that I just play the Herald as a character to prolong my turn, because I know that if I like want a chance of winning one side, I'm gonna need to play my cards after Evan so that I can be a little bit more reactive and go to the side that he's weaker on. And so yeah, at this point, I think the 1-1-1 will help me less than just being able to kind of like see what happens and make my decisions based off of it. Quick shout out. I'm actually borrowing this card from another YouTuber, a guy trying. I saw his Ortis. I think it was like a Sigismar. It was either Sigismar or Waru like deck profile. And I saw that he was running this unique. And so he's actually one of my teammates. And so I just reached out and was like, can I use this for the event? And he let me borrow it. So yeah, I was pretty glad to be able to get this Kokoba. It was pretty good throughout the day. So I'm playing everything awake at this point. I'm just trying to go for the kill. I have, yeah, the Thoth awake, trying to take an expedition. With that teamwork training coming down, it is actually gonna like take out my Robin and mess it up so that I'm not winning on a side. And the 1 mana left, the trooper is able to fill out the curve and stop me from progressing. Yeah, I think without that, I actually would have moved. And so, yeah, that was like a perfect play. It was really smart there how Evan chose to save the teamwork training, even though it meant he was playing under the tax for longer. Probably just with like some smart turn planning, he realized he had some extra mana. And so he was able to save that teamwork training and just play it at the end with the most information while still being able to play all the cards he needed that day. And doing so also made it so that I continued to play for a win, thinking that I would be able to advance, which meant I didn't sleep any bureaucrats. In this situation, it would have been better if I had just spent my whole turn sleeping bureaucrats, because then I would have pretty much been guaranteed to win on this day. And honestly, maybe that is a strategy where you purposefully lose 2-0. But I just was like pretty confident at that point that I could have gotten one side. And so I didn't go for like that more setting up play. I feel like the setup play too, it can get punished a little bit if your opponent does have removal, or if they're able to take both sides while also sleeping bureaucrats, it might not actually put you in that much of an advantage. So while it would have been better in that situation since I didn't pull off the victory, it's not necessarily always the thing to go for. And now I'm playing as the first player, not ideal. I put this Robin to sleep, hoping to be able to avoid tiebreakers. Since Evan was able to draw so many cards on that previous day with his attorneys, I really don't feel advantaged going into tiebreakers, and I also am out of Robins and pretty much everything at this point. So I'm just thinking, if I am winning, it's got to be right now. The attorney comes out, and since we're in the forest region, at this point we're actually trading on the companion side, which is really bad for me because if he wins any sides, essentially, we'll be going into a tiebreaker. And so, yeah, that's a lot of pressure now, and I'm basically out of manas because of this Robin Hood tax. I probably have one more play, or maybe I don't even have anything at this point. A lot of my war games are actually really one-sided, either in my favor or not actually. And so yeah, either like it's always like you win big or lose big. But here, um, for a while we were trying to do the math. Well, I had realized, like, I think this was maybe even Evan's first tiebreaker like that, where he had won on both sides and I only won on one. And so while we did both meet up, since he had passed himself and moved further, essentially total, he wins and we don't have to go to a tiebreaker. And so, yeah, that was a great game. Some really smart plays from my opponent, pushing us to game 3, not where I wanted to be. And I feel like it is some justice that Evan was able to take that back, since I did accidentally play the sticky on a Robin with Tough 1 early in on the game. So I wouldn't have really wanted to win a game where I had accidentally made an error like that. So now you see, yeah, let's talk a little bit about these openers. So I think that some of like the main things you want to do day one, you want to play one bureaucrat asleep, and then you want to play 1/1 drop on the opposite side so that you don't move in the expedition with your bureaucrats and you can get your effect. So here we see Evan sleeping a frog and an attorney. Personally, I probably would have tried to play the frog on the opposite side and move. I think that that's a little bit more important than the extra advantage he got. I also think if he was going to sleep a character, it should have been on the same side as me so that he could have been contesting. I feel like I'm already not going to want to go for the left side because I don't want to block the attorney and give him a draw anyway, and he is already so far ahead. So I think it would have been better to play that frog on the same side of me, or probably just awake on the same side. You might have noticed that I played my legate on the opposite side of my opponent's attorney, and that's because if I played on the same side, I would have been starting down since the stats are worse. Normally, if I have a stronger bureaucrat than my opponent, I'll want to sleep it on the same side as them so that I'm ahead on the next day. But if I have a weaker one, that's when I try and go for the other side so that I can at least take one. So now I'm desperately losing on the left, so I feel totally fine setting up an attorney there. Going to be really good to kind of catch up with my opponent's card advantage and get that draw. We also kind of have a little bit of a dance going on the right, where at this point we're both advancing since I'm skewed towards water and forest and Evan's winning mountain. So um, he doesn't have a bureaucrat asleep yet, but he would be getting an expedition lead, which makes me have to like kind of decide if I need to try and block him. And you'll see I make a pretty weak play here, but it was necessary, I think, to actually use teamwork training on the token. The reason I chose the token is because if I had put it on the Ozma, he could have played it again and drawn another card. And he actually ends up floating 2 mana. So I'm really glad that I kind of had that foresight to make that play, because now he's discarding a card from the reserve and he had one less draw. Also, yeah, if he had just played the Ozma back out, he would have won the expedition again and we would have both moved. But because I got rid of the token and he didn't have anything, I actually am lucky enough to be able to be the only person moving on the companion side. And I'm also the only person who was able to sleep bureaucrat. So pretty much exactly where you want to be. You're always trying with Wario in the mirror to either get that expedition or board lead. And here we have the board lead early on, which will make it a lot easier for us to sleep more bureaucrats and kind of just get that like train going even further. We see the spy coming down, getting rid of our legate. It's kind of a weak turn for the spy. You do have 2 mana left to be able to play something like an attorney, but that wasn't like the most powerful target. It probably would have been better the next day to get rid of something like the attorney. And now let's take a quick look at this frog. So this is one of my favorite uniques. I yeah, was searching for a while for a card like this. The frog normally doesn't have an effect, but yeah, this version, it's very powerful. When a non-token character joins your expeditions, you can actually create a 1/1 token on either side. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to push the board while also putting characters asleep. It's kind of nice that you play something asleep, but you still also increase the power on your expeditions. And so here, yeah, just with like that high roll, I'm able to use a teamwork training. I had 2 of them, so that's probably one of the reasons I had to use it the previous days, because I was like stuck with a little bit too many spells in hand. So was able to get rid of one of them on the token while still having one now to take out the attorney. So once again, I'm on the board lead, and I'm also on an even greater expedition lead. Feels great. This frog is a very powerful card to have on the board at the start of the day, especially with some cheap characters like the Trooper in my reserve and the Ozma. It's going to make it a lot easier for me to just like keep my advantage going and possibly even win both sides here again. So we lead out with that Ozma and get a draw. Now we're going to bring out the attorney and put it to sleep. The game's not like at this point we're still in an expedition lead on the right, and I feel like we definitely want to be sleeping at least one character every day up until you're about 2 movements away from winning, and then you can start to consider just going for the expeditions instead. But there's still plenty of game to play, and I don't want to get behind on the board, so I'll make sure to bank some advantage for the next day, even though this attorney won't get its effect. We've got that trooper sitting there, which is actually going to be 2/3/3 worth of stats since we have the frog out. And so we can actually split it between both sides too. It's going to be a really good kind of answer to whatever our opponent does. Without a token or a bureaucrat at the start of this day too, it's really tough for Evan. He can't really play that Ozma because it would just be a 1/2/1 for 2. And so going to be leading out now instead with this trooper of his own. I just play mine to match it and just try and guarantee I'll take both sides. I'm up by at least 3, I believe, on either side at this point. Yeah, I'm up by 3 in Mountain, I think, on the right, and 2 in the others, and 3 in everything on the left. So hoping that'll be good enough, but Evan still has 3 mana. And another trooper, yeah, a lot of cards in hand, actually going to be able to meet the requirement for Ozma. So a pretty impressive play for Evan for a turn where he started with no bureaucrats, still being able to get that draw and actually win a side. So that was really huge to be able to keep me from double advancing. It pretty much would have been unwinnable at that point, and having those troopers in the reserve is very strong as well. Both of the sides I'm on don't have forests, so they're going to be really powerful way to kind of pull back things into his favor. But once again, in order to pull off that and block me, Evan wasn't able to sleep a bureaucrat. So yeah, I've just been able to keep that pressure going for so long now that I pretty much start every turn with this slight advantage. And all of a sudden, though, the Robin comes down, which is a pretty great card if you want to try and pull things back in your favor. Let me pull the Robin quick up on the screen for anyone who might not know what it does. So at this point, I'm just going to set up. I know that with the Robin out, I can't really go for like a double advance or anything to stay, or even if I do, I might as well try and set something up for the following day, because with the Robin, well, actually, this Robin's awake too here. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just trying to, pull the Robin up on the screen. There it is. And yeah, look at this. I mean, with the crazy pressure, I honestly probably would have slept that Robin anyway, even if it meant losing 2-0, just so that Evan could have like set up a way to win the board and then just try and 2-0 for the rest of the game or something. But yeah, in this situation, having to play that Robin awake means he might be stopping me for a day, but he's not going to have an advantage yet again on the board on the following day. And I have this powerful frog prince out. Yeah, and so I believe, I'm actually losing both sides, but I'm going to be ahead on the board since I was able to sleep 2 bureaucrats. So there was a trade-off. I did lose 2 expeditions, which is pretty unfortunate. But going into this next day, we are in mountain on the left, and so I am already advancing on that side and the right as well. So I feel pretty good here just with this board lead that things are still in my favor, even though Evan has caught up. And I have a lot better resource gain going this time than on our previous game. I still have a full reserve, and one of them is a card that draws. And I also have, I think, a couple cards in hand. And so, yeah, at this point with the board lead, even though we're tied here, I'm feeling a lot better than I was at the end of the last game. So I think I'm about to play a card, but then I think we'll probably realize in just a second we didn't put the tokens out. For like all of Swiss, I feel like my gameplay was so tight, and I still think I'm making the best strategic decisions at this point, but a lot of the procedural stuff, like removing your fleet encounters or just like remembering to put your tokens out and things, I think a lot of the players were starting to struggle with that because we were just so fatigued. It's interesting because in Angers, oh yeah, here I think we finally realized we didn't have the tokens. I like had been looking at my hand and was kind of tunnel vision, but as soon as I put the Robin out on the board, I'm like, oh yeah, where's the token? And so now, yeah, we go for that. So this second one that's coming out is for the Frog Prince, and now we have a sleeping Robin. Neither of us can win this day, so I'm not really afraid of setting up bureaucrats. And with the frog out in the lead already, I think I'll be able to have a good chance of getting an expedition lead while also setting up for the next day. A smart play from our opponent to sleep the Quetzal. He could have done the Robin, but this is good actually to be, wow, this is disgusting. So yeah, he played the Quetzal, which was smart to be ahead on the stats on that side, but we do have a second Robin. I actually had these in my hand for several turns, I believe. It's pretty rare at this point to, yeah, let's pause this game just for a second and debrief. So, yeah, let's see. So, yeah, that was a tough way for things to go for our opponent. So let's just go back here a little bit. So, yeah, our opponent had, you'll notice we have the attorneys on the board, right? We got one in reserve, one on the field. We had been able to draw a lot of cards. And like I was saying, I kind of had a resource advantage at this point. And so because we'd been digging so much, I was able to find these Robins. And I just held on to the one for several turns because it didn't seem right to play it itself, I felt like. Because if I had just played one, I felt like it wouldn't have been as strong as like doing something with my frog or whatnot. But with kind of the extra cards in hand, I had the freedom to hold on to this Robin. And then all of a sudden, when I got the second one, having 2 is just like pretty much game breaking. I had it a couple of times in Swiss, and I think that the biggest problem with Robin, you'll see it makes all your opponent's cards cost one more. If you get two of them out, I feel like that's where it really becomes unfair because everyone's like pretty comfortable playing into one, but having two is just like absurd. It just breaks the game where all of a sudden now you have to spend 4 mana if you're playing two cards. And so, yeah, I think that I I just kind of like was holding on to that one, and it was just too good to give up here. And so, yeah, my opponent just scoops. It's not even game over. Theoretically, he could win on the next day and stop me, but yeah, he just didn't want to play through this and didn't feel good enough about his odds. He has 4 mana left, but yeah, probably only having like 3 drops or something in hand and just not having an extra play. Yep, you'll see. Oh, there is a teamwork training, but that wouldn't have really been able to do anything at that point since the sleeping characters I had were cost 4 or more, and I believe you only had 3 characters on the board. So I was able to win the top 8 match, and that means that I'm not out of the tournament yet. Going into the top 4, it's actually going to be me now. And let me change this overlay against all of the marbles on Fen. So we're going to get a little bit of variety here. A Lyra hero making it into the top cut. There were actually 3 of the Fen players who made it into top 8. And so, yeah, I'm going up against one now. This is the 3rd Fen I've played today. And yeah, I hadn't dropped a game yet. I mean, I had dropped 1 game, I believe, to Fen, but I hadn't dropped a match yet. In this matchup, honestly, Robin Hood, it's definitely all right, but it's maybe not even that good. You'll probably see as we're playing here, most of the time when you play Robin Hood, it just like eats a cloth cocoon and you don't really get that much out of it. You spend 4 and they spend 4. I honestly am not afraid of playing my Robin into a cloth cocoon though, because a lot of times if you do have a sleeping bureaucrat at the start of the day, you'll be double advancing. And so while they did kind of trade you mana for mana, you can often sneak out a little expedition lead, which feels really good against Fen. I feel like it's a little bit harder for them to make advantage outside of some of their anchored cards. And so if you can get a lead, it can be pretty hard for them to come back, even if you don't have sleeping bureaucrat going into the next day. Opponent plays Cernunnos. I would have liked to have the 1-drop, 2-drop play here to be able to advance, but instead just playing out the Thoth. This is definitely something you might want to know. So I think here we're realizing we didn't have the dice, and so I think we're gonna roll for this one because that was like what we'd agreed on at the beginning. So we're just gonna roll it and see if we need to turn it or not. It's the same as we would have if we hadn't looked at it yet. And there we get it stuck in the middle, so we have to roll again, but it was even, so we just keep it the same way anyway. So what I was about to point out though earlier is if you have a bureaucrat like Thoth or the Legate, you want to play it on the side that your opponent's moving on because there's a chance that they'll move into an expedition with only region types that you have, and then you could just theoretically get lucky and have your card seem a lot stronger than it is normally. If I played this Thoth to the other side, 100% of the time, my opponent's still going to be in water. And so I'm like guaranteeing and like taking away that opportunity to get lucky. And I'm like guaranteeing that they're going to only have to beat me in 2 in water. Here, my opponent did move into the water, but half of the time they wouldn't have been in water and it would have made things like slightly more favorable for us. So yeah, that was the proper side to play the Thoth onto. I'm honestly a little jealous of these Fen players not having to think about the mana during our matches because yeah, at this point it's like definitely a lot to think about, and they can just start focusing and planning their turn. While yeah, I still have to just like think about which card I'm going to put in the mana. So we have a big expedition lead. This is exactly what I was talking about with like those cloth cocoon situations where it's like, and I said expedition lead, but I meant like board pres. Yeah, we're ahead on the board, but we're not ahead on like the temple movements or whatnot. But if they play cloth cocoon here, all of a sudden we're caught up and in the lead. And so even though we don't have a sleeping bureaucrat, we would be in a good position at this point. So yeah, this is like the perfect time to play a Robin Hood. Now our opponent, they can still play something like a Cernunnos and guarantee they trade, but at that point, which it is what they do, we will be in a better spot because of the Robin Hood. And so yeah, we were able to get, no matter what they had, either we would have been moving further than them this day, or we would have been setting up a Robin Hood. And yeah, both are like favorable outcomes. So we are slightly behind, but yeah, we have that Robin Hood out, feeling good. Going to be putting the Thoth into the reserve. It is interesting. I mean, I guess I'm not the only person playing Paper Herald in the top 8. We do have all of the marbles with a copy of his own, so going to be able to get that 0 cost 1/1/1 as well, which is pretty good here with my Robin Hood tax. He can push aside or try and like tie things up even if he's out of mana. So yeah, pretty cool card to see there too. And it is nice, I think, as well in this matchup. You'd really like to play 2-drop, 1-drop on the first day against Robin, especially when they just do something like I did where you sleep a Thoth instead of going 2-drop, 1-drop of your own, because then he would have been able to have a 2 expedition lead, which is really strong, honestly. And so I think, yeah, running the extra 1-drops in Fen is not a bad idea at all to have more opportunities where you can, basically get that 2-0 on the first day against Wari, which you'll be facing a lot in competitions. All of the Marbles was a great opponent to play against. So nice and so fun to play with. I feel like, yeah, it was so enjoyable. He's like such a wonderful person. Like I would like sabotage something in his reserve, and I'd be like, I sabotage the Cernunnos, and then he has the, then like let's say he has like the Paper Herald left, and he'll be like, Paper Herald's nice or something like, and so he'll just be like, oh, well, the one I get to keep is good, or like he'll always just say like a fun comment or something every time I did anything, and I was like, wow, this guy's so fun. So now we're staring down a Cloth Cocoon in the reserve. It's interesting. You get a little bit of extra knowledge against Fen, and so now it's like I have to. I know that there's a potential anything that I sleep is going to get eaten up by that, and so yeah, it'll definitely kind of like be some mind games and change the way I play. Do I give him a good target for it or not? I can't just not sleep anything ever. So does this mean maybe I try and sleep like a 1-drop or a 2-drop instead of a 3 or 4-drop? Maybe. Or maybe I just throw something big out and make sure he gets rid of that. And then I know on the next day I can play this Robin from the reserve without a Cloth Cocoon being around. Definitely a lot to think about at this point. Hatter comes down. Not the best because we're still in water. So at this point, it looks like we're going to be double advancing, but pretty much guaranteeing we'll never be able to get over it with that play. And at this point, though, too, there is that Paper Herald in the reserve. So if I don't play something awake, I will be losing that side and not double advancing. So it does put the pressure on me still to have to waste a resource on putting something awake. But lo and behold, what's the perfect answer that's going to let me still sleep 2 characters? It is actually my unique frog again, so I can put that to sleep and still follow it up with the Thoth asleep, and then get a token to be able to get over this tide expedition for me on the right. And so yeah, this actually works out very favorably. Yeah, pretty much like the perfect answer. And while our opponent's going to be going into water, I do feel happy that I am going to be in mountain. And oh, interesting. So I put the token onto the left side. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why I did that. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, not really sure what I was thinking. I must have just not realized I had a token out or something, or huh. All right, well, yeah, it's kind of funny watching these replays back because I felt like I was playing like super optimally in the moment, but I guess like the fatigue was on me a little bit there because I don't think there was, unless I was missing something, I think I would have been able to move on the right side as well and tie things up if I had just put the token there. And I mean, Robin was already taking the other side, but yeah, we'll just keep watching. And this is the board that I'm left with, so I guess we can see at this point what I'm able to do. It's pretty crazy because onagers, they played 10 rounds of Swiss and then they played up to 4 rounds of top cut, but it was all single elimination. So at this point, I'd already played, let me think, I'd already played more rounds of like more games than people had played in onagers. So even though it's like a smaller tournament, in Swiss, I played 14 games. So in just Swiss alone, I'd already played the full Angers tournament. And at this point now, I've already played 3 more above that. So I think, yeah, I'm 17 games in at this point, and it's probably around like 8 p.m. or something like that. Maybe it's like 7 p.m. still at this point. So it was a very long day. And I flew in the night before the event late. So it's like, I didn't even get a full night's sleep. Um, so I don't think there will be like a ton of misplays, but especially now, like with that overhead view, not there in the moment, not having to like worry about moving the cards around and really just thinking about what's going on. Yeah, maybe we'll even catch a couple mistakes that I've made here that kind of with that extra foresight, I'll realize like there was like a better option. But yeah, even though we got a little behind there when we didn't need to, we are really ahead on board at this point, which is going to give us the freedom to sleep cards. If we play the Robin here, and even if it eats a cocoon, our opponent's basically going to be out of mana. We'll know we'll win both sides, and then we could possibly even sleep something else from the hand. Throwing out the token doesn't matter too much which side I put it on. I go on the left so that I'm up 4 in some of the regions on both sides, kind of evening it out, which is strong. And yeah, it will be the cocoon, almost like forcing that out from our opponent. And making it so that they can't necessarily do a ton of other things this day as well. If they play something like a Cernus from hand by using their Twinkle Twinkle to like get an extra mana, they would only be tying us. I guess theoretically they could, and even if they do that, see now I get the token from my frog, which puts me to 4 in water on the right. So yeah, the best that they could do is tie us on the left at this point and anchor like a Cernus, which means we're going to be setting up a bureaucrat this day and at like minimum advancing on one side while our opponent won't advance at all. We'll see what it is. I don't actually know if it was the Cernus or what it. Oh, it's just an allo. Okay, but yeah, gonna anchor allo the hard way, having to use the Hatter on it. It doesn't block us. Our opponent's the one who's only in water, so we're actually still gonna move on both sides, and all of a sudden we're gonna be in the lead. And great for us because our opponent played the allo to the right. We're actually not getting blocked with our attorney. The legate. It is probably better for them to do it to that side so that they have a way to move with it on the following day. But I would have actually been like more worried if they had played it to the other expedition. Yeah, and honestly, looking at it, they're on water on both sides. I think it would have been better if all of the marbles had played the allo to the other side so that he could have been blocking me at the start of this day. But yeah, just choosing instead to go to the right side. We'll see if it ends up being a punish on this next day. At this point, gonna get that double resupply, have a lot of options. The way the decks are built these days, they're pretty much running like at least half or more of their deck are cards with support abilities, primarily ones that either make the next card cost 1 less, which is a good way to counteract Robin, or that gives something anchored, which also plays super well into Waru decks, because if you can start the day with something strong, it can kind of counterbalance the bureaucrats that they start the day asleep with, and it also gives you an extra card on the board, even if you're under a Robin tax. Going to be acapella training and Cernus from our opponent. They're the first player, so they flip the cards before we put our token out. Some of those procedural things were pretty hard throughout the day. I often remember, but yeah, sometimes it would get tricky. Like if my opponent accidentally like did one of those things before they needed to, you definitely want to be like careful and get comfortable with the timing of these noon effects, because yeah, you'll always want to have as much information as possible before you make a decision. So if you're the second player, you definitely want to let your opponent play their token first or flip their cards first so that you can make your decision accordingly. Another thing that you theoretically would wait for is if you're second, you should play your mana second. A lot less people do that. And I did try doing it during the event, but especially on earlier days where pretty much everyone always plays a mana, I think it is maybe less significant and you can get away with not doing it in the proper order. Sometimes because I was trying to wait to play my mana until my opponent had, I actually forgot to play it, which got a little awkward. So yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't worry too much about the mana and would just make sure you put it down and don't forget. But especially for the noon effects, you would want to see who does it first. Huge Anansi coming out for our opponent, so they have a lot of pressure on both sides. Yeah, gonna have to really decide now if I want to focus on setting up or on just like winning a side and keeping this lead. I choose to set up and play the Frog Asleep, and we'll see if that becomes a problem for us. It's more expensive from the reserve, so I'm already pretty far down on my mana. But as the second player, I will probably get the last action in, which can make it so that I might be able to take a side anyway. And with the expeditions that we're in, that Tinkerbell is perfect there, basically guaranteeing that the left side, the companion side, is off limits. Now, can I even take the right side? Yeah, we'll have to see what I have to work with. I definitely can't get away with sleeping another bureaucrat at this point and moving on the right. We'll, yeah, like kind of see what I can come up with. This was a super fun event. There were side events and things going on at this point that I didn't really get to participate in too much. They actually had a boss. Loki Knox was there, just doing the double gates here on the left. I think that is pretty strong. Our opponent really values the reserve, and while I am not going to be pushing the right side as much, I will be getting rid of two of our opponent's resources and having two strong characters set up. So not necessarily the best decision, but an all right decision. If I don't end up taking the right side here, I think that it probably would have been better to play the legate awake, and then I could have tied things up in water and actually gotten ahead in the mountain. I think that might have been better, but if I might actually have like a trooper or something here still. So if so, then this is like absolutely the right play. But otherwise, yeah, it would have been better to play the legate on the right. But yeah, the side events were super fun. You have Loki Knox playing his own likeness on a card as his hero with crazy effects where if you move an expedition forward, you can roll the dice. If you get a 6, you move your expedition forward again, so you can actually combo it and move several times. Here I actually get pretty lucky. Our opponent just plays asleep on his own allo, so I'm not worried anymore about having to take that side. So I don't know if we'll actually ever find out if I do have a trooper or not in hand. Yeah, probably just realizing there that they were only going to be able to win one side this day. And so, yeah, trying to set up some advantage to kind of balance out our sleeping characters. I think that's a pretty strong play from all the marbles. I also can't really tell in this image if I have 2 or 1 mana left. If I had 2, this is definitely a smart play. If I have 1, it's a little bit of a gamble trying to think if I have the trooper or not. But yeah, the side events that were super fun. So you have Loki. I swear he has loaded dice because everyone was saying he got 3 6s in a row and just kept moving and moving. It's like a double-edged sword. He actually makes you move if he rolls a 1. So it's a lot of gambling. Really fits Lyra, and then you also have like team challenges. You can play against like Justin or other people in 2v2 and things. So yeah, there's just a lot of fun things going on. So even for the people that were out of the tournament at this point, they're still like able to hang out, do trades, have a blast. I had a great time trading too. You never get so many people with so many uniques in a room together. And so yeah, I had very little time since I was playing all these rounds and didn't really ever get a break. But the couple of trades I did make felt really good, and I was able to start finding characters for some of my other heroes that I could run. So yeah, it's getting close to like end game here. You see, we're up 1 and theoretically able to get lethal here if we can move on both sides. We're in just water, which is really strong for our opponent since that's Al's best region. but with free tokens from frogs, we might be able to make it back up. I choose to try and push both sides, and I think that's a pretty good choice. We're going to see actually 2 unique cards here, so let me take a second to pull these up because, yeah, they're very impressive. I think that, yeah, All of the Marbles did a great job of building his deck. I'll probably try and get a deck profile of it up sometime soon. So let me see. We've got, yeah, and they're very similar to adding consistency to what is otherwise like a pretty inconsistent hero, right? And so we have here 4 cost 3/3/3. You may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may discard target character with hand cost 3 or less. This is like the best anti-Waru card ever. It trades so favorably into my 3-drops that I like to sleep, and it can like break my sleep cycle. You get to remove a 3-cost card and play a 3/3/3 for 4. So even under a Robin Hood tax, you're getting good value. And yeah, these are definitely things I'd want to be scared of because yeah, they're just such like value houses and perfect into me. The other one is Discerniness. You may discard a card from your reserve. If you do, you can discard target character with hand cost 3 or less. Since it's discard and not just send to reserve, it really busts your opponent's resources up too, and it's from hand and reserve. So if you draw this instead of resupplying it, you could use it twice. So yeah, I'm pretty scared of these. I get rid of the one that puts a card from your hand in reserve because I don't want to give my opponent a way to put a card with a strong support ability in their reserve and combo it out. I kind of want to force them to play those weaker cards from hand. And if our opponent here uses the Discerniness, then they'll be getting rid of their Tinkerbell and have an empty reserve. So I feel like, yeah, this was like pretty good for our resource game and making our opponent's day more awkward. But yeah, when I saw these come down, it was like, I need to play the Spy right away and get rid of some of this stuff. I feel like our opponent would often just even play him out right away too and take out our frog and be in like a lead on both sides and like kind of stop that engine. I think that's, yeah, even going to be the play that they do make. We see here they get rid of that Tinkerbell, so they are burning through those resources, but taking out the frog at the same time. Now we're tied on the right and behind on the left, and they've only spent 1 more mana than us. So yeah, a really good board position for them because of these strong uniques being able to, yeah, just kind of like swing things right back into their favor, get rid of my unique as well. That was doing a lot of work for me. Yeah, we'll see what I can do now and like what type of play I choose to make. At this point, it's going to be pretty hard to win both sides, so I'll probably want to sleep something, but I also want to be really careful that I don't lose both sides. Going to be a teamwork training. Possibly not like the best play here, but actually getting rid of 3/3/3, 4/2 does feel good. And at this point now, we're tied or winning on each side, so it's going to make it pretty easy for us to win at least one side for sure. Unless we end up sleeping something like a bureaucrat. Yeah, I'm kind of on the edge of my seat right here too. I don't remember like the order or the different games or like even what happened in some of these. So I honestly don't even remember what is coming next. Yeah, because it was. Oh, I mean, I can't tell you how many games I played total this event, or I'd spoil my results if you didn't count do the math backwards. But it's a lot of games, and so it's hard to remember all of them. Dang, then the aloe comes down. Kind of a punish for the play that I made. It would have been much better to save the teamwork training for the second aloe vera. But what do you know? Um, I actually don't even. It's not even a punish at all because we have another unique. This is the battle of the uniques. I think I had 2 on my side this day, and he had 2 on his as well. Let's get you up this one. This is another Kokoba. So I'm actually running 2 Kokobas with boosting effects to just really be able to, here, let me quick pause before we move on. I'm running these to kind of give me some extra power and reach that Waru doesn't normally have. I feel like since you often get behind early, you need to 2-0 your opponent in the late game to catch up. And some of these uniques, like my 2 Kokobas, can put a ton of stats on the board in a turn, which can either like let me afford to sleep a bureaucrat on a day when I'm behind on the board while still keeping up, or just win both sides out of nowhere and surprise my opponent. So yeah, these were really good for me all day. Shout out to Gamers Guild. They have lots of cards and singles online that you can buy. And I actually got this Kokoba from them. Not gonna say how much I paid for it, but yeah, I bought this from them from one of their reverse auctions, and it performed well all day for me. Yeah, you'll notice too, like some of my tech choices are based around my uniques. One of the things is like the Paper Herald to be able to get like an extra body out for cheap so that I can hit that 4 character requirement to be able to like pull some of these off even on like earlier days. So yeah, game 1 now. We're up against the Fen player, and interestingly enough, all of the marbles actually likes going first. So I chose for them to go first day 1, but they then chose again to go first on like the second round after losing. So yeah, kind of interesting where we kind of both get what we want essentially. I sweep this Quetzal here, and both having like a slightly weaker opener. Honestly, Anansi is not amazing, and I believe that yeah, like I mean it's fine because if I just sleep a character, it really doesn't matter. Like if you have Cernunnos or Anansi, they're both strong enough to block all of my 2 drops. And if I have a 3 drop, I'm sleeping it anyway. So it's pretty much as good as Cernunnos day 1. And now from the reserve is probably better than Cernunnos. So honestly, it's not even really a bad play because at this point with the resupply, it's going to be a 3/3/3 for 2 from the reserve. So maybe even better than Cernunnos, honestly. So I don't know if that was like intentional or if and like they had chose to make that play instead of a Cernunnos, or if it was just like all that they had available. But yeah, like it's not even that bad honestly in that matchup to play a Nazi. We are behind 1, but it's pretty typical, and now we're going to be able to get a lot of the characters on the board. So we're the first player. We're going to have to put these tokens out before they resupply. I think we got a little bit of misordering here, or we both did it at like the same time. But let's quick go take a peek now. This is the 3rd unique, so now we finally know all of the uniques for our opponent. All right, so we got a Mahe. Pretty expensive unique, but an absolute powerhouse. It's a 5/5/3, and you get the effect. Once again, it's an arrow effect. I'm really liking these arrow effects from all of the marbles because you don't really have control over if the cards end up in your hand or reserve. So getting the effect from everywhere is very powerful. You may discard a card from your reserve. If you do, you may return target character or permanent to the top of your opponent's deck. So like, well, I guess to the top of its owner's deck if you did your own, but yeah, cloth cocoon there. Yeah, this is what we were talking about earlier. Even though our opponent gets to get rid of our Robin Hood. Oh, actually, it wasn't a Robin Hood. It was a Quetzal. Even though our opponent gets rid of the Quetzal, we win both sides, even though we lost a Sleeping Bureaucrat. And because it was the Quetzal, we actually had 1 more mana to play a Frog. So yeah, that's actually very strong. Not even losing the setup and also getting into the expedition lead. Yeah, that's not feeling good for all of the marbles. Yeah, so looking back at this Amahe, it basically is like a paint prison on a body. I think that this can be pretty good. The 6 cost from reserve is a little high, but yeah, if you take out like a 4-drop or something, it can trade pretty well. I do feel like though, returning the card to the top of the deck is a little weaker than discarding it, but yeah, cool card nonetheless. So now we're starting the day. We got lucky, and the frog is in an expedition without like with where mountain isn't relevant, so that's pretty good for us. It might as well just be a 2/2/2 for 1, which is awesome. I actually really like cards with like skewed stats because when you play them in the right expeditions, I feel like you can get a lot more value than cards with even stats everywhere. My favorite 3-drop stat line is actually 3/0/3. I think that that's the strongest, and then I think after that, like 2/2/2 and 2/3/0 are pretty much tied. But yeah, here we see us starting up slightly. We're probably thinking about the mana or something. Oh no, it looks like we've already done noon. So yeah, we're just waiting now for our opponent to make that first play. It is going to be the Anansi, putting them ahead by 2. So yeah, kind of taking back one of those expeditions from us. We do know we're staring down a Cernunnos, which means that it's would be pretty easy here for us to lose both expeditions. We're already behind by 2 in one and only up 1 in the other. So if we get too greedy with a lot of sleeping characters, our opponent would be able to play like another 4/4/4 and have that stat line on both sides, which would be, yeah, kind of a lot to overcome. And I don't feel like it would be ideal at this point to lose the lead that we've gained. So optimally, I'll be trying to find a way here to kind of keep trading with my opponent while still setting up sleeping bureaucrats, and we'll see if I can pull that off with like the cards in hand. Fen's really blowing up in popularity after the Honors tournament. I think it's basically like the second most popular deck, or at least like the second most popular deck among um, players who are like pretty conscious of the meta to Waru. I don't know if I would say it's favored into Waru, but definitely with the right roles, you can steal games from them. But I feel like in the best of three, I'd rather be the Waru player because I feel like I don't know. I do feel like the matchup is like maybe slightly in my favor, or at least I kind of have control over the game. And as long as I make the right plays, I feel like I can at least take 2 out of 3. Here we did lose our lead, but we're not behind. We're just tied, and we have the sleeping bureaucrat. So yeah, at least having that board lead kind of makes up for it, and it still feels like we're a little bit ahead. Gonna have a lot of tokens here because of Fen getting that resupply from its effects. So yeah, it is really good against Fen to have Quetzal. I only ran 2 in the deck because I wasn't too worried about the Fen matchup, but if it becomes like the dominant deck, you'd probably want to put the third in there. So now I've got to pick my tokens, and then we'll get to see what our opponent has. Most of the time with Quetzal, I put like my tokens all 3 on the opposite side so that I'm evenly balanced. If you're really scared of removal against something like Ysmir, you might want to put 1 on Quetzal's side, even though your stats are unbalanced, so that your number of characters are balanced. But yeah, against Fen, I doubt they'd play a Cloth Cocoon on something that's awake, and so I feel pretty fine doing this even start. At this point, I'd bet that I'll sleep a character first because I'll kind of wait to commit actual stats to a side until I see where my opponent goes. And so yeah, we'll kind of see. It looks like I'm gonna just probably play the Frog Prince out or something. I think that's pretty good if I do make that play, or as long as I play like a 2-drop or something to sleep, because then if our opponent uses the Cloth Cocoon, they'll be behind on the mana. So yeah, it is just going to be the Frog Prince. I feel like, yeah, that's a really strong play so that I can um, oh, and yeah, it looks like maybe I'm not even putting it to sleep. But I feel like this is a strong play because it's saving the most of my mana to use after my opponent goes. And now we get to see them sleep a character, kind of like copying us a little bit. And yeah, playing out this 3/3/3, banking the advantage for the next day. At this point, it's going to be pretty hard for them to do anything on the board today. So I can maybe start to get a little greedier. It's probably a little bit of a punish that we didn't sleep the frog. Oh, wow. Kind of embarrassing. But I had in my overlay, I had something covering up the sleep token, which was way off to the side. So it is asleep. Okay, that's good. That's the play I was thinking I should have made. But yeah, and I didn't make it. So yeah, never mind. The frog is asleep. That was the right play. But I just had that covered up. Probably not going to edit it out either because I'm trying to do this in one take. But yeah, there's a little just a little blooper for you. So yeah, we're in a good position. We're up 3 again on both sides. We already have something to sleep. Probably just going to play another character sleep, or maybe even 2 this day. Our opponent is saving up a lot of mana, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite enough for that Amahe at this point. So yeah, kind of just like a dead card in the reserve still. We'll see what we choose to bring out. Oh, nice. So we can get rid of that Cloth Cocoon. And yeah, with 2 mana left, now we'll be able to set up our Attorney without like the fear of removal. So yeah, this is pretty good. Especially if our opponent was kind of relying on that for their play this day. It's going to be awkward for them. Yeah, just Another example, if you're not playing the Or Despise a 3 of in your deck, you definitely should consider it. Oh, and Hatter is strong here. Yeah, at this point I'm down to, oh yeah, so I can play the Attorney here to tie, which would be good because I'll draw a card and get the Expedition lead. Or I could put it asleep, but then I would be facing down to Kodama with better stats on the next day. So yeah, this is definitely the right play here. Going to be able to get the Expedition lead and but actually be losing on the board. So kind of like pretty even going into the like the rest of this game. I ordered. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I ordered a pizza to try and have it ready right before Top Cut around like round 5. Yeah, around like round 4, I was like, if I win the next round, I'm guaranteed to be in top 8, and I know I'll be playing a lot more. So it's kind of nice. Gamers Guild has like a in-house bar, and so I went and made a pizza order before my last round to be ready afterwards. But it actually got delayed, so I had to wait until the end of my top 8 match to eat it. And I was just kind of like watching it on the side, just like tempting me until I finished. But then yeah, me and all of the marbles, I just like shared, and we each had a piece to just try and like get up our strength before this match. So it was honestly a little refreshing. We probably were feeling a little better at this point than we had been for a while because we both got to like eat a snack and get like a little bit of a break before it. So yeah, that was nice. Also, we were playing timed rounds for Swiss, but because you can't have a tie in the top 8, we had to play like essentially until there was a winner. So the full best of 3. So a lot of these matches now are going like an hour and a half. I don't even remember. It might have been like an average of around an hour and 40 minutes for 3 games, which is pretty crazy. But if you think about it, most games normally take 20 minutes. So that would be like an hour. And then I guess just with like a little bit of thinking or fatigue, it was just drawing it out even more. So now we're staring down in a Nazi. Yeah, losing on both sides. Kind of a tough spot. Do we even think we can keep up on the board? And our opponent has a Hatter in reserve, Martingale too. That means that they're going to be able to anchor something. So it's going to be hard to get the board lead because they'll probably anchor the Anansi. And it's going to even be hard to get, like keep our expedition lead because we're behind. Yeah, this is actually a really strong position for all of the marbles right now, and we're going to have to like work our way out of it. I'm sure we'll continue to see even more and more Fen players as like the deck list gets refined. I think it's really got to be like a clean engine because for other heroes, even if you run cards that are bad in your deck, it might not affect your win rate that much because you can just always put them in the mana. So even if you don't realize to like replace them, you can just put them in the mana and kind of like get away with it. But I feel like Fen is a deck where you have to actually have every one of your 39 cards be very purposeful because you're going to be forced to see them and not be able to put them in the mana in a lot of your games. And so yeah, once players lock down like that perfect ratio, I feel like it'll just be like so much more powerful because yeah, each card is really critical to your game plan. And you have to have like even more so you have to have like the perfect balance of costs and effects because you have to pretty much be able to play with whatever hand you're given. Here we are trying to keep up, but we just got even with our opponent's Kodama. So still behind on the board and no banked advantage set. Our opponent has spent 3 mana, but they do have a Martingale that could like help them cheat something else out for cheap later. So they're essentially even with us on mana at this point too. So we're basically behind because we're even on mana and losing on the board. We are playing for some pretty good prize support. So it's actually going to be 5 Kickstarter displays for the winner. And at that point, I think they're going for around like $240. Like the cheapest I've seen is like 180, and then like the most I've seen is around like 245 or something at this point. So yeah, somebody's going to be walking home with just under a case of Kickstarter displays in this event. And the other players, I believe it's just one case for 4th place and 3rd place, and then it's 2 for 2nd place. So pretty skewed rewards. And yeah, so at this point, it's like who if you win this, you get an extra display because you'll at that point the worst you could get is second and get two. So we're basically playing for a display in this match. So there's a lot on the line, possibly even golden boosters because it is the Kickstarter one. I really want to take it because I actually haven't even opened a golden booster yet. I think I've opened 7 displays and no golden boosters in 7. My brother opened 1 and he got a golden booster. So kind of crazy, but um, yeah, at this point we're just really uh, hoping to take this down. Thinking hard about our plays. Our opponents anchored an aloe vera, and they still have Hatter in the reserve, which they could anchor the Anansi. So they're going to have a huge board presence going into the next day. At this point, we have nothing, and we're losing in the expeditions. So throwing out our legate here, thinking about it, it's tough. We're in Gist Forest, which means that they're actually only 5 worth of stats with Aloe. So if we put this out, we could be tied and essentially sabotaging something, but then we wouldn't have it to sleep to be able to keep it around for the next day. If we can figure out a way though to block all of the marbles here and play the Legate of Sleep, that would be the best because then on the next day he'd still only be in Forest. And so, yeah, we'll see if we can pull that off. I think, yeah, that's probably what we're going to go for. Oh, bringing out another unique. I'm pretty sure it's just the Charge Kakoba. It's a little hard to tell since they do have the same art. But yeah, it is the Charge one that hits all cards by 1 instead of 2 cards by 2. Let's quick bring that back up on the screen. So with that, we're able to actually tie our opponent on the right, and we'll be ahead on the next day because they're only going to be in Forest, which they'll only have 2 of, and we'll have 3 for our Legate. So yeah, pretty good way to like sneakily get ahead on the board, but we are going to be losing by 4 on the right side. So not like a major blowout, but we were able to move there and lengthen the expedition lead and kind of like slightly keep a balance on the board where we are at least ahead on one side while also getting a sabotage too. So yeah, like definitely a pretty favorable turn. I do think it's hard to say which of my 2 Kakobas is better. This one definitely can get more total stats on the board because it has like the potential to get like 6 boosts or something. But the other one is a little bit better for surprising your opponent because it can put all of the stats on one side. So you can go from a side with just a 1/1/1 token out to having 7/6/7 in stats with just 3 mana. Whereas this one would just give you something like 5/5/6. And so, yeah, I do like both of them. And I think they kind of have their different use cases. For like a full board, this is definitely the better one. But in a situation where you kind of want to like get the last word in and surprise your opponent with a win when they thought like you had no way of coming back, the other one can be really good as well. All right, doing our noon procedures. Going to be a huge reserve for all of the marbles, so the resources are really building up at this point. Aloe is a really great card. On the Altered Insights podcast, I actually am a part of a weekly podcast that's on Alex's channel. So he's a Snap YouTuber, but he's also now into Altered. We do a podcast together with Kawa as well, someone else who that actually has content for Lorcana and Snap and some other things too. So yeah, you can catch the 3 of us weekly on our Altered Insights podcast. We had Justin on there the first week, and he was talking about how good Fen is and how good Aloe Vera was before it was popular. I really do think that, yeah, Aloe is critical. You get essentially 4/4/8 of stats over 2 days for 3 and a free resupply. And the way I build my decks, I pretty much prefer to have almost everything in the reserve than the hand because I just play a bunch of cards that are good there. And so, yeah, getting those is so effective. Here, I'm pretty much I'm playing the Robin on the left here because I think if I'm moving, it's going to be on the right, and at that point, I won't be enforced anymore. But I'm pretty much conceding this left side and hoping that my Robin Hood could essentially stick around. And now, though, it's the perfect time for our opponent to pull the trigger on that Amahe. They put the Robin back on top of our deck, so we will be seeing it again. But we lost our setup, and we are way behind on stats. Yeah, this is kind of funny actually. So they put a Robin on top of our deck, but we had another one in hand. It was kind of awkward. I'm like, all I have in hand is Robin, so I don't really have an option. Like, I have to play him, even if it's not good here to sleep a Robin and lose both sides. It's like all I have is Robin. So what do you know? That third card in my hand, guess what it is? It's actually a Robin too. So I just like ran. I had one Robin in hand, and I hadn't been playing the Robins because I never thought it was good. It's kind of a interesting thing because there are actually a lot of times during this tournament where I hold the Robins in my hand. There are certain turns where it's great, but there's other turns where it just feels like getting hit on the board is better. But all of a sudden, I got stuck with this awkward hand where I literally just have 3 Robin Hoods in hand. And so I'm like, well, I guess I just play 2 today because that's like pretty much my only option. Because of that, though, the Amahe was perfect there. It gets rid of one of them, and all I have is 1 Sleeping Robin. But our opponent's completely caught up on the expeditions. So yeah, pretty good trade for them. And by preventing us from, if we had gotten that double Robin to stick, it would have been so disgusting. But with just 1, it's not that big a deal, really. Especially with how much mana we've acquired at this stage in the game. It is hard for me too, because my Kakoba does cost 4 from the reserve. So I was actually stuck with 4 4-cost cards that turn, so I didn't really have that many options. And today I actually have 2 more 4-cost cards in hand and 1 in the reserve. So yeah, I'm pretty limited on what I can do at this point. I'm just hoping that multiple Robins is good enough for me to like get a free win, but I don't really have a lot of counterplay in this hand. So our opponent's gonna, oh, and it looks like we forgot to get the token, so maybe we'll be pulling that, or maybe I'm even just manaing at this point. It's like a little hard to say, but yeah, we'll see. One thing I was a little sad about, I had in my prediction video, if you've watched that, I did say that I thought Fen and Waru would be in the top 6 decks. And I was pretty confident, obviously, that Waru was one of the best decks because I brought it. But I also feel like Tasia is very strong. I almost brought Tasia to this event, and I would have been happy to play Tasia. I do think that he has a good Waru matchup. Actually, he has a really good Waru matchup. And I think it has a lot of other good matchups like Sigmar and things too. Some of your worst matchups are probably like Traced, but that's less popular now that Waru's good. And maybe a Faunus. But you have to be a pretty good Faunus player for that hero to be good. So I wasn't as worried since the game is so new that people wouldn't have like had time to figure him out yet. The biggest problem was I just couldn't find 3 uniques for Tasia that I could play. So I kind of had to go a little more basic with Waru. So I don't think that like Waru is the only viable pick for tournaments, but it is just the one that was right at the time. And like, as you'll see, I have some really strong uniques for Waru. I've been looking at these for like over a month. I've probably been like looking for like a month and a half or 2 months for these cards at this point. So the meta had shifted to where there were a ton of Waru, but I definitely wasn't just like being a meta sheep or anything. I had like been aware that this deck was good and kind of been like planning to bring it for a long time. Actually, way back when I went to PAX West with Justin and we were doing like drafts even before Altered came out. So yeah, even before the release of the official release of the game, like 1 week before when we were advertising at PAX West, I already told Justin that I was planning to bring Waru way back then before like anyone even knew that it was good, like before the release, before everyone had tested it. So I kind of had just like already decided that it was like the right deck for me, and the meta went that way, but I just didn't really have enough time to pivot to try something else. It might have been fun to do something like Tasia, and I'd like to do something like that in the future, even if the meta stays the same and try and bring a different hero, but it was just the best that I really had at the time. I think what makes Waru really good, well, there are 2 things that make Waru really good. The double Robins is pretty gross. Like this here, when your opponent starts cards cost 2 more, I feel like a lot of your matchups are even, but you have like a 20% chance you get double Robin and then you just win for free. So it is a little bit annoying to me and probably for everyone that Waru can get like free wins about 15 to 20% of the time when they get that double Robin. And then the other thing that makes war really good is I just feel like all 39 cards in your deck have a purpose and are really efficient and strong. You not only have the annoying Robins, but you also have Ozma, which is like the best draw card in the game, Teamwork Training, which is the best removal in the game. You have the Rare Trooper, which is the best one drop in the game. And so it's like every card you're playing really has a strong purpose, whereas some of the other decks play cards that are like a little bit more filler cards, maybe to get to the 39 card count. I do think some of your cards like Thoth are pretty weak, but I don't know. They still at least are in alignment with your game plan. So here now we see the triple Robin. This is the first and only time I've ever done this, but yeah, the game's gone late enough. It's all I have. We've got 3 Robins out. Not even that good though, because our opponent had so. Let's pause this here quick for a second. Our opponent had so many stats on the board. Sorry, 1 second. I have a lot of thing. Okay, so our opponent had so many stats on the board that even though we play these double Robins, they're still double advancing, and they had Martingale and Twinkle Twinkle in the reserve to kind of counteract it. So it's like we have these Robins. They're supposed to be game winning and disgusting, but all it takes is like one Cernunnos to outstat us on the board, and now we would lose to a small step. Let me go back just a little bit. So here it is like a tough day because if we let's see. So if we played a Robin Awake on the left, we could be winning temporarily, but our opponent still has Twinkle Twinkle, yeah, and Martingale. I guess actually theoretically at that point, I think, yeah, maybe this is a little bit of a misplay. So it's interesting. It's we've got if we play 3 Robin, if they do actually have 1 mana, then they can't play something else. But if they had 2 mana and we just can't like see it very well, then at that point they could just play something like a Martingale and tie us, and now we wouldn't have 2 Sleeping Robins the next day. I could play out like maybe like my charge Kokoba or something and try and win the side better. Maybe that is better, but it's like here the only thing we really lose to though, I feel like at this point, if we're starting the next day with a character on each side. We have a character on each side. We have so much mana. Our opponent, we're going to be going first. So we're going to play our 3rd Robin as our first play. So every card our opponent's going to play on the next day will cost 3 more. I feel like unless our opponent has small step, there's probably no way we lose this. And this is game 2. With Fen and Crowbar, you put your cards in your reserve half of the time randomly. So I'm like, if my opponent's running like 1 or 2 small step, I feel like I would have seen one of them end up in the reserve or something at this point. So I'm like, and no one really has run small steps. So I'm like, they probably don't have it right. So that's why I felt comfortable making this play. I don't think people have small step normally. Most of them instead choose to run the Lear Festival, and you probably can't run both in a deck, or it's way too likely that you'll draw 2 cards that do nothing. But if you take the festivals out, you can probably get away with running small step. But at this point, I'm pretty sure that my opponent's not running either. So here it is. Hate me. I don't know. I'm the villain. Sure. We've got these 2 Robins out. We're going to be first and going to be playing the 3rd. But I still don't even feel like this is that good because our opponent's already up 2 expeditions. So the best that we can do this next day is tie our opponent if we win both sides and have 1 Robin asleep. I mean, we have this charged Kokoba, so it'll be pretty hard probably to win both expeditions. I mean, it'll be pretty easy to win both expeditions. But we're just caught up. So it's like, this seems like the most disgusting thing ever. But in reality, it's not even that good. And what do you know? They have the small step. They have it. I found out afterwards it's a 1 of in their deck. And I think they only had 1 card in hand, and it was a small step. So we played ourselves. We let them get the win. Let me pull small step up here. It deserves to be gets to some. Yeah, there you go. Look at this. Run small step. It wins top 4 games. it beats triple Robin, staring down triple Robin. And well, guess what? It doesn't matter if your card costs 3 more. If you have 9 mana, that's how many we had. He had 9 mana, and he plays the small step for 9, wins the game there. So gonna be going to a game 3. Wow. Yeah, what a yeah, I feel like these are like the perfect games to have on stream. What a wild game. How often do you see Fen win with small step, and much less against an opponent who has 3 Robins out? So yeah, you've seen it here first. Robin doesn't need a nerf. No, our opponent beat us with 3 Robins out. But actually, like maybe that the nerf is warranted. We won't get into that too much here. But yeah, it just shows that like a lot of times Robin isn't always going to be like the best card. But I think yeah, a couple times here you see me on the stream end up playing multiple Robins in the late game just because they kind of end up in my hand and it's what I have to work with. We love this opener. We got the 2-1 opener. I think you're supposed to get it at least like 40% of the time with the build that I have. And so yeah, very happy to finally get one of those and start even with our opponent and have the board lead. Like this is exactly what we want. And also getting to sabotage the Anansi. So it's like we've gotten the board lead, the expeditions are tied, and a little bit of a resource lead. Feels super good. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. The one of small step. I feel like it's definitely a powerful card. Like a lot of people have been aware since it was revealed that it is super strong. I think that it would be like a lot, like really good in Navenka and things too, where you do control what you mana because you can just get rid of it if you don't want it. It's a little hard in Fen because sometimes you resupply this or something and it's dead until it isn't basically, which is like a little worse for her than other heroes, but still super good with just one and how many resources you see, you can probably get away with it. And yeah, it just shows you there, like even if you just go even with your opponent or like a little better, you can get like that free win sometimes. And so yeah, very strong. I kind of like it more than the festival. Throughout my matches, I was trying to decide if I needed to keep a removal to answer my opponent's festival. But a lot of times, almost in all of my games, my opponent never had enough cards in their hand in reserve or like mana to be able to pull off the festival combo. So even if I put my removal in the mana, I wasn't scared at all because it was basically impossible outside of like multiple uniques for them to be able to festival me. So I do think if you're going to run an alternate win condition, possibly small step's the better option, especially if you're just facing a lot of Warus. So we get cloth cocooned, but as I mentioned before, it's kind of funny. I was talking to all of the marbles and I was like, we were talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I actually like going first so that I can cloth cocoon my opponent's Robin or like so that they're afraid of it. And apparently a lot of people maybe get scared and don't play Robin because they know their opponent can cloth cocoon it. But I think it's a great trade because now I'm up 2 expeditions. So I actually would just throw my Robin into a cloth cocoon all day because now even if I just have to like do the simple task of like, even if I just only sleep bureaucrats, I'm going to be way ahead on the board and we'll be even at this point. So yeah, I feel pretty good about yeah, jamming a Robin into a cloth cocoon. And I also think Robin is the best early on. So if you save it for later when your opponent has more mana, it's maybe not as impactful anyway. So I'd rather just throw it out here and not get stuck with multiple in the late game when I'd rather have something else like I did in the last game. We get the Thoth, and we still have 2 mana left, so probably going to be able to push the other side, but all of a sudden Tinkerbell comes down. Double Tinkerbell, yeah, it's a lot of stats and a Paper Herald in the reserve, giving our opponent an extra play. I just pass and float my mana because I don't actually have another bureaucrat. It was pretty smart of them to sabotage the legate. And so yeah, because of that, we lost our lead. And we don't have as that impressive of a board either. I mean, like Thoth is definitely good, but it would have been much better if we could have played the legate there or something, or at least forced our opponent to use the Paper Herald in the reserve. So neck and neck. Game 3 of top 4. Got the display on the line. The chance to win the first major tournament in the US is on the line. Who's going to be moving into the finals? All the marbles or your very own Trickster. We'll see very shortly. All right, going through the early game procedures, you see Trickster here. I think that's another 2-drop, which can help all of the marbles get some of those opening hands where they can go 1-drop, 2-drop against Waru. It's also just a really good cheap after you in a lot of matchups. So yeah, I think that's a pretty strong card, especially if you're not running Festival. You can take out like some of the Sandmans and extra things and just run some more solid cards like Trickster. If I lose to the Trickster, the Ouroboros Trickster, that's just kind of embarrassing here. But it's like a battle of the Tricksters, and going on the side with Thoth, it is pretty good for us. Since we played the Trooper to the right, we had more stats there and kind of forced them to the left. But now even if they beat us on that side, we'll get a free token for Thoth. So it's like kind of like a win-win a little bit almost for us. Yeah, if you're playing against Waru, you absolutely normally would want to try and win on the side that doesn't have the bureaucrat, even if it's harder. So even if even if my opponent has like one extra resource, sorry, one extra stat in like the regions on the side with their tokens, I'm still probably going to try and push that side just because the reward is so good if you don't give them something like free for their legate or Thoth or attorney. So yeah, I'll always try if you think if it's like possible to push the opposite side, even if it's like harder to do so. Lucky for us, we are in mountain, so this Ozma is going to be extra good. We're up 5 now in mountain, so doing really good job of pressuring both sides, but no bureaucrat out yet. So yeah, gonna be Ope, and we're back to the Cernus. Yeah, super good card here. Without a Robin out and this just costing 4, um, that's very good. Here we got the Cernus. 3/3/3, removing essentially my 3/3/3. It's like a 6 mana value or like a 6 stat exchange for 4 mana. Crazy card here. And this one coming from the hand means that it could be played again in the future. So I have to be worried about it the next day. At this point, I kind of make an interesting play. I didn't actually have a bureaucrat. So with the Ozma, I wasn't able to draw into one. And so I just sleep my Trooper here. It's the strongest card on the right, and I'm not afraid of losing that side at this point. So I just try and bank the most stats that I can, since I won't be having a bureaucrat on the next day, and it's pretty much impossible for me to come back on the left. Actually, I'm trying to look at it. Did I? Actually, I might have gotten up because I was pretty lucky there because the Trickster rolled a 1, 2, or 3. I was able to just barely sneak by. So yeah, that was a really strong play with the um, Sandman, even though I wasn't able to block my opponent since I was able to double advance while they singled advance. We were able to get the lead and still set up something boosted and asleep for the next day. So yeah, that was definitely a favorable turn, and I feel pretty good having both the board and the expedition advantage at this point in the match compared to the previous game where we were often losing on the board or in the expeditions for a lot of it. It will be pretty hard now to trigger this Ozma. Since we don't get the token, we actually have 1 body out. So we're going to need to get 2 more to draw, and I think my hand's pretty light. So it's definitely anyone's game. I'm really going to have to be able to make the most of my draws and have like harder time ordering my plays since I can't just like jam Ozma at the beginning or anything. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you have any questions about my plays or my deck choices. Yeah, feel free to like let me know. Maybe share your predictions too, who you think's gonna win this match or who you think's gonna win the whole tournament. Still not even sure at this point who's on the other side of the bracket. There's a lot of strong players over there, possibly even undefeated ISIS if they do win it. And so, yeah, really not even like sure what's going on that other side. But let's see. I'm, looking at reading the Cernunist, just trying to see what I can do to get around it. Yeah, but yeah, feel free to throw those comments out. And let me know too if there's any of these like decks you've seen that you really want me to try and get a deck profile for. I'll try and like reach out to the players or something. And so yeah, just let me know what you're feeling. We lead out with the Robin Hood. So this is my second Robin Hood this game. I'm drawing so many of these, which like often is good, but the decks that are popular now can handle Robin Hood. Like in the mirror, you got sticky notes, you got teamwork, you have your own Robin Hoods or Quetzals and things like so. You're maybe not like you're able to deal with it. And then against Fen, they have lots of answers too, and so it's or like they have ways to reduce the cost of their cards. So it's like I'm drawing all these Robin Hoods, but the decks that I'm facing are okay against them, and they're also just pretty expensive, which takes away from me being able to be a little bit more reactive. So I'm kind of just at the mercy here of whatever my opponent does. Here, though, I think I actually keep and play the Robin partially just because of that sternness. I don't have a way to sabotage it. And so if I played something like a 3-drop or 2-drop here, then they could get rid of it. But at this point, oh, and they cloth cocoon. Yeah, they cloth cocoon the trooper. You might think that's like pretty bad, but I actually am just 2 movements away from winning. And so yeah, I think that like it was a little bit of a desperation play where all the marbles knew they're like depending on what card is in my hand, there is a chance that I would win the match right here if they didn't cloth cocoon the trooper. But that's still good for me because now I'm going to be having a Robin Hood on the board. I do need to be like a little worried that I could lose to a small step again if I let my opponent double advance here. So I probably need to play something awake on the left and hope that it can beat out anything my opponent can do. But yeah, not necessarily like a bad spot for us to be in. And the last secret card, let's see what it is. Really just trying to make sure with my tournament life on the line, I don't make any mistakes here. It is the frog. So kind of interesting that and I have to play the frog awake, which is pretty funny because that's like one of your best cards to sleep. But I had to play the Robin there first to be able to like mess up my opponent's mana. And like optimally, you'd love to play the frog first and get the free token. And if I had done so, there's a potential that I could have slept the frog and the Robin and gotten a token to move me on that side. But I was more worried about my opponent being able to do something extra with the Twinkle Twinkle in the reserve and the cards in the hand if I didn't play Robin fast enough. So yeah, just having to get forced to play this frog awake just to move me on a side, which means I think I'm out of cards in hand and I'm just dealing with a Ozma in the reserve and the frog. So pretty low on resources, but in striking range since I'm just, 1 movement away and not afraid of small step either because we were able to keep a large enough lead. I think, I had to play a lot less greedy this match now that I knew my opponent didn't have the small step, no more like sleeping double bureaucrat and losing expeditions, really having to just try and keep even or better to, play around the potential of a small step. It is nice here with the Ozma and the frog. I can actually use the support ability too if I want to draw as my first action and just get that token for 0, have 3 characters on the board and use Ozma. Trying to decide here if I play a mana. Very bold decision if I do because I believe I only have 2 cards in hand. I would get pretty punished by I'd get pretty punished by a sabotage. If I make the choice to play a mana, I'd almost certainly need to do the Ozma right away to get the 2 cards in hand. But yeah, we'll see here. I think I picked the mana back up. I'm pretty sure I might actually just not mana because I'm feeling pretty good with the cards that I have that I can at least get an advancement. And I'm kind of just playing around the worst case scenario that they would have, like a Tinkerbell or something, or a Tanuki. I mean, I already saw a small step, so who knows? Maybe they're playing something like Tanuki too. So yeah, it's not going to be the mana. And then our opponent gets a Martingale. We get the token on the opposite side. I almost always on an empty board. Yeah, actually, I don't even know almost always. I literally always on an empty board will play the token on the opposite side. So that kind of like whichever side, like we're just pressuring both sides so that our opponent can't play something to one side that's really big and then be winning and like even on the other. I think that, trades are really important in this game. And if you can end your turn with a lead on both sides, most of the time your opponent can only get ahead of you on one side, and then you'll go back and forth and essentially like keep that position. But if you're only ahead on one side, then they can get ahead on both, and now it's going to be really hard for you to come back. So when possible, you'll want to try and get that lead on both sides. Really strong here having the spy to be able to get rid of that super powerful sturdiness in the reserve. We got the Trickster coming out to challenge us though, and yeah, at this point just trying to win one side. We have the tax, but our opponent has double discount in the reserve, so it's not even that impactful. Yeah, we'll see if we can just barely eke this out and take one of these expeditions and make it to the grand finale of the Gamers Guild tournament. It's going to be the Ozma now. We're going to draw a card. I'm kind of saving the frog at this point to have an extra action at the very end of my day. I think that I can kind of like go slower than my opponent. And so, yeah, here you see actually, wow, what a combo having the Trickster and the Thespian. So going to be able to get 3/3/3 on that side, actually tying us. So things like the frog here for 0 could be really good to like steal that expedition after our opponent runs out of resources. So yeah, I'm really glad. Even though the frog coming out early could have given us some extra tokens, we'll actually probably be able to get a similar amount of tokens by just using its effect and be able to play more actions and just like more cheaper cards since it is pretty expensive from the reserve. Another Ozma gonna let us get up 2 now on the Thespian side. We're already up by, I believe, yeah, 2 on the other side as well, or more actually. So yeah, we're doing pretty good now at this point. But our opponent does still potentially have the option to play another card. We'll see what they can do, but it's pretty much GG. Oh, and they have another Thespian. Oh, but it's not enough to take both sides. They can only get up and block us on one. Theoretically, we could have actually played the frog to take both sides. That's going to be the end of it for all of the marbles. Yeah, congrats on an incredible tournament run with Fen and Crowbar, making it, yeah, all the way to the top 4 with a non-war hero. Yeah, very impressed. Great uniques. Awesome deck build. I really want to go look and see if I can find the list. And because, yeah, the Tricksters and the Thespians and things, there's some sauce in that deck. So, yeah, congratulations. Also, yeah, if I didn't say it already, congrats to King Evan, too. They actually only lost to me all day, once in Swiss and once in top 8. So, yeah, a great showing from them as well. And sorry that I had to be the one to knock them out of the tournament for both of these players. So, your boy made it. It's the finals. It's going to be here. Let's get up the new overlay now. All right. So we've got the Waru versus Waru finals. Similar to Angers, it's going to be that mirror match again. And oh no, the undefeated player, Isis, has made it. It's going to be the two of us duking it out for 5 displays and Eternal Glory as the winner of the first major tournament in the US. Really hoping to take this one home, but I did lose 2-1 to Isis in Swiss, and I don't know if it was even that close. Like, it was definitely close. We did go to tiebreakers, but I didn't feel like I was in control of the last game at all. So, and I also, since I'm the lower seed, have to start first. So, yeah, not the best position to be in. I feel like I'm just slightly disfavored now because of that first position, but we'll see. I'll be doing my darndest to try and pull this out and take the victory. It's pretty interesting with the 2-1 start. If you have the frog, you can sleep the frog instead of a 2-drop. If you have the trooper, it's always going to be the 2-drop going to sleep. But sometimes if you sleep the frog, you can actually beat your opponent's trooper with your 2-drop, and then you both sleep a character, but you advance and they don't. So there's definitely some merit to sleeping the frog and keeping your 2-drop. If you have, it's a little hard though to do that, because if you use the attorney, that one can beat both 1-drops. But it's also so good to draw that it's probably not even worth it. And then if you have the legate, it can only beat the frog, which is fine. But if they have the trooper, you probably would have rather slept the legate than the frog anyway. So I don't know. It's just like it is an option, but you have to get everything has to kind of go right for it to work. It's definitely nice to be the second player because you can kind of follow what your opponent does. I actually lead out with the frog awake first, and then I kind of want to just wait and see what my opponent does before I sleep my 2-drop. Oftentimes I would do this if I have the legate in hand, because if I have the attorney, I know that I can match my opponent no matter what, and I'm not afraid. But here you'll see, yeah, here I'm actually going to pause this because I think this is really important. So if I played the legate first, then Isis would have played the attorney to the same side, and I would have been losing at the start of the next day. And so if I had the attorney, like maybe I would just throw it out right away and I wouldn't be afraid. But yeah, in this situation where my opponent could probably play Robin Hood on the next day as their first action, I think it's pretty important here. It's much more important to me to make sure that my sleeping bureaucrat's on the opposite side of them, so that if they play Robin Hood and I have to like sticky note seals it or something, I can like make sure that I'm winning an expedition. It would be pretty devastating if I played this legate out and even they just like played a Quetzal on the same side, because then going into the next day I'm losing both sides. And then if I sticky note seals them, I get behind. So I definitely want to make sure that I keep up or am ahead of my opponent. And so yeah, with this weak bureaucrat, I think it's really good. Even if I had the trooper, I would have probably played that first to make sure that I can put this on the side opposite of my opponent. So works out really good here for me. And that was, yeah, definitely the right line to take. Now we'll see. It looks like, though, I'm not going to get lucky. My opponent actually has a 1-drop 2, and it's going to be the Frog Prince. So here it looks like they're considering, oh yeah, they're just going to move on the, yeah, this is pretty interesting. If they leave this awake here, we're going to both move on that side, and then, oh no, we actually don't move. Sorry, they tie me. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting play. They're basically slowing down the game because we just basically no one moves on either side. So they still get the draw from their attorney, but she also basically just like makes it so that neither of us is moving, which I think is very smart because with my charges and things that I'm running and my tokens, I kind of want to be aggressive and win early. And in this like 6th round of Swiss, Isis was able to beat me in the late game when I was low on resources and their hand was still full. So I feel like she made a really smart decision there. If I was a second player, I would want to speed the game up because of how I played my deck. But with how they play their deck and the resource like game that they have that was like slightly better than me based off of Swiss, I think it is very smart for them to slow the game down here. So they're even trying to be aggressive and push both sides, whereas I'm just trying to like survive on the one. But it looks like it's actually not going to be Robin Hood. I do like playing the attorney to the opposite side here asleep because now whichever side, if they lose a side, they'll definitely be drawing at least one card. I think that's really good. And I mean, that is the side they're behind on. This does give me a little bit of freedom now to make like more plays than just having to play like Quetzal or Sticky Note or Thoth. Yeah, this is pretty tough. At this point, Isis is undefeated and so has a ton of momentum coming into this finals. One of us is going to get 5 Kickstarter displays while the other one is only walking away with 2. So a huge difference. We didn't, yeah, like I feel like it briefly got mentioned to do a prize split, but I'm pretty sure both of us are just like way too confident or like hopeful maybe. So yeah, that was never going to be on the table. Also, yeah, Isis is a YouTuber as well. I believe their channel's name is May Haven. I think that's just their like non-gamer name. And I'll try and put, if I remember, I hope I remember. I'll try and put a link in the description because I believe they actually have a deck profile up now already for their deck. Don't go check now though because I don't want you to find out the results of the match. But yeah, I'll try and put that link in there so that you can go, yeah, look up their deck profile as well on their channel afterwards. So now we actually have the Robin Hood. So pretty nice. And our opponent wasn't able to play another card. They'd already spent the 2 mana, but once the Robin Hoods came out, they probably just had like another 2-drop or something. So getting a pretty good position because of this. It's a little hard, at least on like the small screen, for me to see their markers. But yeah, we are just tied up at this point, but we have the Sleeping Robin Hood and we are in forest. You'll notice here, see, I did like what I'm talking about. I didn't play the Robin on the other side because now I'm in the power position essentially, and I have like I have more stats than them, so I want to put it on the same side so that when we start the next day, I'll be up essentially. And so it's going to be like harder for them. Like it'll be harder for them to sleep a bureaucrat because they have to play more things awake just to keep up on the board on the following day. So because they're first, they have to play the token first too, and I match them. If I was first, they would probably try and play the token on the opposite side to be ahead on at least one. But since we're second, we can kind of take advantage of that and go to the same side as them and just kind of like hold on to that minuscule lead. But we also do have a sleeping Robin too. I mean, an awake Robin now. So they have the tax that they're working under. So this is actually a lot of pressure. I know some people don't like Waru, but I actually really enjoy playing the mirrors. I think that it's a really skill intensive matchup. And yeah, I don't know. A lot of my Waru mirrors today were 2-0. I feel like you can really get a lot of benefit from having experience with the matchup. And a lot of people brought Waru without a ton of experience. People I talked to were like, yeah, I picked up the deck this week because of the results. I don't think you had to do that. I think that there are a lot of heroes like Afanis and Tasia, maybe even Sigmar, Fen, they can have a pretty 50-50 matchup into Waru. Probably one of Waru's biggest strengths is that you don't really have any super bad matchups. Some of those heroes have like 70-30 matchups that aren't in their favor, whereas Waru at least has a pretty even spread, which is nice. But especially moving forward, if the meta is very narrow and everyone plays Waru, I think there will be an opportunity for people to bring some of these decks that have other bad matchups but good Waru matchups to like just have like not have to worry about running into your bad matchups in the Swiss as the meta gets more defined. I don't know if I would say like anything is extremely favored into Waru. It's probably just like even or something. Maybe a Faunus is. I haven't totally figured that out yet because one of my teammates, Skycrier, did get I think it was top 8. Well, yeah, I don't think it was top 4. I think it was top 8 in Angers with um Afanis, and I just I have I've been testing the deck some with him or other people on my team too, and yeah, I can't quite speak to it yet because it's just such a complicated matchup because both of the heroes are very hard to pilot, uh, and so I can't say exactly yet if it's going to be favored or not into Waru, but like there's definitely heroes like these to consider. Sadly, though, in this event, I think since the U.S. has less, um, just like less locals and things at this point, like there's a smaller scene, so there's not as many local events you can go to. A lot of these players hadn't had time to really refine their own list yet and be their own like deck builders, so they just kind of defaulted to copying what they've seen online a little bit. So I think there was only like one Afanis player at the whole event, which is unfortunate because I think that it kind of inflates the numbers for Waru and Fen a little bit more than they need to be, just because everyone's playing them. So it doesn't even like give other heroes that could have had a chance an opportunity to shine. Jumping back into this now, we are first. We start with sleeping a character because at this point I kind of want to see where my opponent goes before I commit something that's awake. They are smart and play a stronger bureaucrat to the same side, which means they'll be in the lead on the next day. So it's like a little bit of a punish to us, but I think it's fine. We have it costs 4 for them to play that Thoth. So at this point, we can probably win both sides. Maybe even play another sleeping bureaucrat. That would be like the most amazing hand. Or if we have like oh man, if we had like a teamwork training here, that would be disgusting to be able to remove this Thoth while winning both sides and sleeping something. Yeah, let's see. I honestly don't even remember what it is, but yeah, some of those hands could be incredible. Okay, it's going to be the attorney, so probably like the second best hand. If we had the teamwork training, then we would have been very favored because we would have been able to double advance and be ahead on the next day. As is, though, we're pretty much tied going into the next day because they're ahead on one side and we're ahead on one side. A little surprised there that they put the Thoth token on the attorney side. It seems like that they're pretty confident actually that they can push even both sides on this next day. So yeah, not even really like if you were worried here, you could just try and go all in on one side, but actually just spreading the stats and going for both. So it seems like they probably have a pretty good hand at this point, and I mean they always have the fallback of double attorney. So we'll see here, kind of like the little token dance at the beginning. Playing the 2 to the side that my attorney on is interesting because it does put them ahead or tied on both sides, but it also means that we're essentially both blocked over there, but I'm getting a draw, which is like slightly favorable for me. So I could just push the other side at that point, and they'd still have to commit one more card to actually get any like value out of that side. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there could be a reason to like just play an attorney awake instead and put the token on the other side. But I don't know. I think this is probably fine depending on your hand and stuff, and if you think you can actually take both sides this day. I just though actually choose to get ahead on the side with my attorney. I feel like I have the lead slightly, and I just kind of want to like hold on to that and run away with it. I think that it's like you want to like bank advantage until a certain point where it's like your cup overflows almost, and it's like now you have enough advantage that you can get away with putting the pressure on while still sleeping something each day because you've like gotten far enough ahead, and I feel like I'm like close to that at this point. Now they play the attorney asleep early as their first action. We have to decide if we want to come out with the Robin Hood or not. It doesn't really leave us the potential to get 2-0'd because they'll probably have to play something like a sticky note or just one card from their hand at that point. So just really thinking about here what the action is. It looks like we probably have 5 mana, I think, and so I probably don't have a follow-up. If I had like a 1-drop, I might play the Robin and the 1-drop. But actually in this spot, if I just left the Robin, I could lose both sides and my opponent would sleep something. So I actually can't even really afford to play Robin this day, or I could get behind. And so instead, just going with the Quetzal and yeah, trying to make sure that like the worst, like they could have just played the attorney, yeah, from reserve, otherwise won both sides and had a sleeping character. So yeah, we can't even afford to play the Robin since we don't have a 1-drop. It's also really good to play Robin when you're the first player so that you can get just a little bit more value out of its effect. So I'm not even too sad to save the Robin because it means the next day when I'm first, I can play it as my first card and essentially get like one more tax out of it. All right, let's pull up this unique too. This is a Baba Yaga. I actually saw this in Swiss a couple times too. It's pretty cool. So it's a 2-cost from hand and reserve, 2/2/1. At dusk, you may put a card from your hand in reserve if you do draw a card. So it's kind of like a little bit of a value engine. One of the reasons that I was getting behind in card advantage comparatively because I have like double charge actually in my list and a couple things. But this card essentially, both times you play it, you get like an extra half of a card in advantage because you take a card that you could use twice, put it in the reserve, so you only get one more use out of it, but you draw a new card that you can use twice. So yeah, just like a pretty good, it's not like crazy for the stats, but it yeah, it is just like pretty good value, and there's not really anything you can benefit from putting in the reserve. But I mean, this is just cool on its own. And the next card you play this afternoon costs 1 less if you use the support ability, which also is good in the mirror if you're staring down a Robin Hood. So yeah, this is pretty good all around. Now I bring out the Sandman, and it's kind of a little interesting here. I have nothing to sleep at this point, and I did that a little bit purposely because I knew with Sandman I could choose exactly what I want to put to sleep. So I need to keep both of my things awake on the left if I want to win that side. It means the only option is the right. I have to decide if I want to try and like win an expedition or not because my opponent has a 1 in water with his Baba Yaga. I can once again do like one of those, just like we saw, I think earlier in the stream, do a little sneaky play where now I sleep this attorney, get an incredible 4/4/4 the next day, and I also am up 1 in water to be able to move right now. So that's pretty good. They will be moving as well, but yeah, I think that that's fine because overall we're getting like a net lead. Yeah, I hope there will be another event announced soon for the US. This was so fun to just like meet so many players in person. I had like people reaching out to me before the event, like, are you going to be there? And it was just so cool to be able to like actually trade cards. It seems so hard online to trade uniques, but everyone I talked to, we were just like sharing our binders and things, and it's like I couldn't like talk to someone almost and like show them my binder without making a trade or like seeing a card that I wanted. And so I think it will be a lot easier in the future as you have like locals and things and whatnot. It'll be easier to find the uniques that you like. There was someone I made a trade with at the beginning of the event, and they actually ended up running the card in their deck. So it's like, yeah, it was really fun to just be able to kind of have that opportunity and not really be dealing with like crazy auctions and things online. So we're staring down this side. It looks like that ISIS actually has had the ability to make another play. Oh no, they're not making another. This is them resolving the Baba Yaga. So I think they're putting those in the reserve to draw a card. So yeah, we see that all resolving now. And actually, okay, so now they're going to have a little bit of an overdraw from their reserve. So they're not going to get the most value out of this Baba Yaga as if they didn't overdraw, but still just at least getting to cycle their hand, maybe dig for some key cards in the matchup. And one other reason this play was so good, once again, I was able to line up a stronger bureaucrat on the same side as theirs. So that means that going into this next day, I'll be able to have that slight lead. We also just have the expedition lead as well. So it's like we're up 2 in the expeditions, and we're up slightly on the board. We're also the second player, which is going to make it a lot easier for us to navigate this turn if I ever remember to get that asleep token off of my character. We'll see how long it takes me to remember that. But yeah, it is interesting because I'm like it's like we're all like board game arena warriors at this point, and it does so much of the stuff for you. So there's a lot to do with like yeah, there we go. Finally took it off. There's a lot to do with the sleep tokens, fleeting tokens, emptying the reserve, doing the noon triggers and stuff. It is it's all pretty easy, but if it's like your first event, like it was for me, I think I played like 2 local events, or like I played like 2 drafts, the release event, and 1 open play or something. It's like I haven't played that much in person. This was the first time I was playing this deck list of Waru in person. So it's like it's a yeah, it's interesting. It's like it's nothing crazy, but there are just like little things that we would like forget and laugh about every once in a while. And everyone was super forgiving. I let my opponent take things back a couple times because I really didn't want it to be like some super serious punishing thing. I didn't want anyone leaving and being like, wow, I'm so sad I like made that mistake because I like forgot something and that's why I lost the tournament. Like that's not how this game should be. I think actually even in the official rules, they're like pretty light with the rules, and they said that it is okay maybe to have like take backs or something, and if nothing major has like changed for the game state. And so, yeah, I really liked kind of that friendly, understanding environment that everyone had because it just like helped it, yeah, to be like a good experience and like not have any like painful, yeah, I don't know, accidents or anything, just like really like ruining anyone's day. All right, gonna be the legate trying to pick the side. It is tough here because they're winning on the left or on the hero side, but they also probably want the effect to sabotage. So at this point, yeah, I don't know. It's like kind of a tough because I'm winning on the right if they put it there, but it's like you can't win everything. You can't have your cake and eat it because if you put the legate on the right side or on the companion side, the next day it's losing to Robin for stats. But if you put it on the left, you might just end up winning the expedition and not get the sabotage. It's choosing the board over the effect though at this point to be more valuable. Um, One thing from this event too, just in like the downtime, sharing some of the things that I like learned or liked. I actually really liked that we did 60-minute best of threes. I've heard some people have tried to do 50 minutes at locals, and maybe that's the recommendation, but I don't know. That just seems like a little unrealistic. It's basically like you're just deciding if you do 50 minutes that you know that a lot of the games are going to end in tiebreakers. Because even on like Board Game Arena, where a lot of the stuff is automated, and I think it's faster to play online, it's an average game length of 18 minutes. So if you go to game three, it's going to be taking longer than 50 minutes. And so I think too, in person, games probably take at least 20 minutes. And if anything happens, like if you make a play like ISIS did, where you have both players get blocked and no one moves day one, now you're adding an extra day, you'll easily get to like 25 minutes. War is a pretty slow deck in general too. And so, yeah, it's without like 60 minutes, oh, there would have been so many more tiebreakers. I'm pretty sure that even with 60-minute rounds, there were several people that had to go into tiebreakers anyway. But then at that point, oftentimes with the finishing the current day, playing one more, and then on the following, and then doing like an arena, you pretty much always can get like a winner in like a fair way or something. And so it just doesn't feel like you have to be planning around tiebreakers, which I think is very nice, especially with a deck like War Root. That's one of the reasons too I was running like charges and some of the uniques is because I wanted to have a way to put out a lot of stats in case it did come down to tiebreakers. And if I didn't get 2-0s in some of my matches, it might have, because sometimes I finished game two 55 minutes in with 5 minutes left. So we would have gone into game two. We would have gone into tiebreakers in game two if it was 50 minutes, which is crazy because then if I had lost, it would have been a 1-1 tie. We wouldn't have even gotten the opportunity to play game three and find an actual winner. So yeah, glad that didn't happen. But yeah, it would have been crazy if like we were starting game three there even. We would have, with 60 minutes, still been playing and only get like the 2 days in the arena to decide it all, which is kind of crazy. And would if that is common and you're going to a 50-minute best of three tournament, you probably have to build your deck a little differently, knowing that like tiebreakers will be part of your rounds about like half the time. All right, looking at this board, we are still two ahead, and we're actually able to once again keep the board advantage too by getting the Quetzal on the same side as the gate. So yeah, feeling really good about this position. ISIS does have, you got to remember that they still have the Baba Yaga in the reserve, which could give them an extra mana. So they do theoretically have the potential to play like more stuff from their hand in a turn than we could. So even though we have like a slight lead, especially with the Robin Hood coming down now, I think they can easily make it up. Yeah, and I really wish that I had been able to find a way to capture our hands, but I only had, this is my phone, and I was on like heading to a work trip after this event. So yeah, I only was really able to get the overhead view. But I hope that like it's still been exciting nonetheless. And I think it maybe brings a little drama in too, since you don't actually know what's in the player's hands or what the potential is. So staring down the sleeping Robin Hood. Luckily though, we have enough mana at this point where we can possibly just play cards, even though they are more expensive, effectively. Gonna be 3 mana, 4. Okay, what is the? It would have been awesome if we had like one extra character on the board right now, so that we could use like a teamwork training or something. But instead, just gonna use the Ortis Spy, get rid of one of our opponent's resources, and yeah, that puts us pretty far in the lead on the left. At this point, I think I'm just accepting that I can't win both sides. And so I want to make sure that I win one and then also just sleep a bureaucrat. Because, oh, never mind. Never mind. Why set up the advantage? Yeah, this is crazy. This is why these uniques are so good. Just win the game, right? Yeah, this is actually pretty crazy. So yeah, Isis here made a pretty value play by putting that Robin to sleep because there was a chance that I could just win the match. It's like it's always kind of interesting when you're commentating, you can't actually pay 100% attention to everything that's going on and talking. But yeah, like now, like just with this quick paused and like giving like the complete analysis, yeah, it's interesting there because you saw in the last game one time, sorry, not in the last game, in my first round against King Evan, he played Robin Hood Awake when I was 2 advancements away from winning one time because he knew something like this was possible and he was trying to get as many stats as possible. Isis here, though, choosing to put the Robin Hood to sleep means that maybe she was like a little confident that she could still block me on at least one side and have at least one more day in this game. But it left an opening for me to get a 2-0 like this and just win it all. And so, yeah, a lot of times I might sleep a bureaucrat early, but here, waiting to do so gives me the opportunity to not sleep anything if there is a chance to go for the win like this. And the spy was super good there to get rid of Baba Yaga because it actually took away one of the mana from Isis so that maybe they would have been able to block me on the side here with like an extra card or something. But when I got rid of one of their mana, it kind of brought down their potential and let me be able to like squeeze out these extra stats to take a side. So yeah, super, super like powerful turn here. Gonna actually put us up 1 in this grand finale. That much more closer to taking down the event and leaving with the 5 Kickstarter displays. So it's gonna be, yeah, just a cadets from hand, but that's not enough to change the expedition advancements. What a great game. So at this point, between our Swiss rounds and this, Isis and I have each won 2 games essentially against each other. So jumping through all the shuffling and things, we're going into game 2. Here I'm going to pause this quick. I finally had the idea for this game to be able to show my hand. So let's quick take a peek at that. The leftmost card is teamwork training. Then we have legate, and as you can see, all these other cards in hand. I'm going to be going first because Isis lost the game and can now pick to make me have that unfavorable position again. And this is kind of a crazy hand because I have a lot of great cards here. Teamwork training, incredible. Sticky note seals, great answer to Robin, and we will be the second player. Quetzal, also very good answer to Robin, possibly better for the resource game. Day 1, I could choose to get the legate, go for a little bit of sabotage, disruption, or just keep the attorney, which most of the time would be the better option too with the trooper. So having pretty much everything. Let me know in the comments, what would you have kept? Which of those 3 cards is like your dream hand? We'll see if it kind of lines up with mine, or yeah, let me know what or why you would have kept, especially going first in this situation. Yeah, I don't feel like any of those cards is necessarily a bad keep there. I feel like probably, I mean, yeah, I'll let you kind of figure it out in the comments. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you think. But not a bad hand to see going into game 2 here. So I start now with sleeping the attorney. Part of it is, since oftentimes the 1-drop and 2-drop, the order you play them in doesn't matter as much. I just try and play them on opposite sides and in different orders as much as possible, just to not be as predictable. Because in this first event, I don't think everyone's memorized their openings to know the exact optimum ones. So sometimes by just mixing it up, I feel like I just confuse people sometimes and they end up playing something to the wrong side. And so I'm sure like going forward, as everyone like memorizes their openings, I'll probably make the exact same play every day. But at this point, I'm just trying to like honestly confuse people a little bit since there are a couple different lines. And if it was the legate, I would definitely want to sleep at second. But the attorney is like pretty strong since most people want to do the 2-1 play the first day. So at that point, you can't really get punished. I think this is a pretty interesting choice from Isis doing this frog asleep first. You pretty much make that decision if you're trying to 1-0 your opponent while also sleeping something, because it is the It it is like a pretty weak bureaucrat, but if, for example, I had played the frog awake on the right, then they could have played the gate awake, moved, I wouldn't move, and we'd both have something to sleep. It would have been a favorable trade. Since it's the trooper, it doesn't actually work. I probably would have only made that play if I had the attorney in hand, because then it would work for either one drop. But now, getting super punished, the frog is in mountain only, so its stats aren't helping out at all. I feel like maybe Heidenstein's like 2020, but it probably would have been better there to play the. It probably would have been better there to just play the frog awake in front of the attorney and then play the legate asleep on the other side. They would have been able to sabotage my trooper while we both advanced, and they'd have a sleeping bureaucrat on the opposite side that actually had a mountain stat. I feel like it's just, yeah, it was just like a little bit of a punish, and it only would have been able to reward them if they played that across from my frog prince. But I actually only run 2 rare frog princes because of my unique, so that's a pretty low likelihood. Only really it was only better against 2 cards in my deck, and probably worse in most other situations that play. So I'm going to push the same side. The frog's basically irrelevant because we're both just going for mountain now, and so we're already tied up on the right. Going to be the legate coming out from the reserve to sleep, not a Robin Hood. So getting lucky. I'm actually, again, I think I probably have like an answer in my hand anyway. But yeah, just interesting. Maybe ISIS isn't even playing it because they don't want to play Robin into Sticky Note. Um, but especially because I ended up, yeah, I honestly maybe not even playing the Robin just because they can't afford to do so, since they would lose more expeditions if I sticky them. But now we just take things slow. We play that trooper out again, having the board lead on both sides while still having 3 mana left to play a bureaucrat if needed. It's just going to be Ozma. So now we can pretty much like set up a Thoth or a Quetzal on the same side as the legate. While still, it looks like we'll be getting an expedition lead because we're just tied on the right and winning on the left. Or we could play something awake to take both sides. But at this point, it's probably more favorable to just keep our setup going. Holding the 2 cards, wow, I might even have just like the absolute god hand or something, because then here I might be able to win both sides and sleep something as well. Dang. Who's this guy on the bottom, this trickster? He takes too long because I just want to see what he's gonna do. You'd think I would remember what happened in these matches, but it's kind of funny. It's been like 4 or 5 days, and how many games have I played at this point? So 14 in Swiss plus 6, 7 already in the top. It's been 21. This is my 22nd game, I think, of the day. Yeah, it's really hard to keep them all on track. Yeah, and I'm not surprised. I was pretty sure it was this Quetzal because I think I actually kept the Quetzal instead of Sticky Note Seals because I wanted to have like a better resource game, and I feel like they're each like pretty much an equally good answer to Robin Hood on 4 mana. So yeah, they're strong play, going to be able to play the Quetzal on the same side as the Legate. And yeah, so if that didn't spoil my hand, if you didn't get your answers in chat, that's the answer. I basically, my choice there with those 6 cards is I kept Quetzal as my answer to Robin, and then I kept the Trooper and the Attorney for my day 1 play, which works super good too for day 2 because then I'll have the Trooper to play with the Quetzal. So if there's no Robin, which is what happened there. So yeah, now we're in the lead for the expeditions and for the board, exactly where I want to be. Feeling pretty good up 1, but anything can happen. And last time I was not able to take the win against ISIS, so we'll see if I can turn things around. Gonna be Robin Hood. Yeah, that's a little bit of a gut punch. At this point, if they play something like Sticky, we would be ahead on the board, but they do have a Frog Prince that they could follow it up with to essentially turn that around. I am in mountain though on both sides, so it would just be giving them 1 advancement to my 2. Still not an amazing play, but we'll see what they think. is like an acceptable answer here to this bad situation. You'd think with like a lead like this, you'd be out of the game, but that's not even close in Waru matchups. Things are so back and forth. Even like in that matchup earlier where I had triple Robin against a Fenton player, it just takes like a little bit of luck or skill, and you can easily turn games around in the late game. We saw one player have double Robin. I think so. I think it's Nadir versus Nero in the Angers finale. So Nadir had double Robin, and Nero played through it and eventually won the match. One of them was actually a Quetzal with the Robin effect. And so it's like you can be way behind in the mirror, but if you just like have one good day and sleep some more stuff than your opponent or have some removal or something, you can like take the board advantage and win the game back in your favor. So here we see the frogs matching up here. So just kind of some weaker bureaucrats to start the day, even on the board, but we do have the expedition lead. Got the token out, ready to go. Gonna have the option to play on the same side as my opponent or the opposite side, depending on how confident I am that I can put out more stats this day. I'd want to play it on the same or opposite respectively. If I just want to like do a lot of setup of bureaucrats, I definitely want to play to the opposite side. We'll see. Yeah, pretty tough here. I think there's a lot of, it's interesting. A lot of the time, probably like 2/3 of the time, it really matters which side you play your character to, because the region stats are better or worse, or depending on what's in your opponent's deck, it's better or worse to do this. But about 1/3 of the time, I feel like it's equally good to play to both sides because all of yours and your opponent's characters have the same stats, or like you just don't know where you're going. And so, yeah, there's sometimes where it's like I'm thinking and I'm like, well, even if I keep thinking, with the information I have, I actually have no idea which side is better to play to. And maybe if you had like infinite knowledge or something, you could like figure out the optimal play. But there are some times where it's just like honestly, like I flip a coin and I just put my card to one side or the other. Like when Isis is first there, she just has to decide which side to put it to. But at that point, we're already like tied on both sides, 0-0 everywhere. So I actually have more information where I can, based off of where she goes, pick where mine goes. But for her, it's kind of like whichever side she went to. It doesn't actually really change things that much. This buy is good here, getting rid of my reserve card. Now, um, just gonna have to see what I can do. It was 3 mana, which makes it kind of an opening for me to just play like better statted characters for the same amount of mana. And so I really should try and capitalize on it if possible. And see here now I've matched on the board for less mana, or I just put this to sleep, which is fine too. But it's kind of like now that that spy came out, I would want to use my cards in hand to try and get like an expedition lead or something out of it, just because I'll be able to put better stats on the board for the cost this day. Get a little bit of a sneak peek of our opponent's hand. Looks like they have one unique maybe and a teamwork training. Yeah, that's unfortunate here because I actually have enough mana that I can just play this out again. So it's kind of just like a temporary solution, but you do get an awkward spot sometimes where you have to use your spells because it's all you have. And they can't just really pass there. Maybe they could have played Ozma. Possibly that would be better and then followed up with the teamwork training. If that was the play, then I might have I don't know. But, well, actually, they didn't have enough mana to do that. So yeah, see, this is pretty punishing because I was able there to just replay the bureaucrat and then still win the other side, draw a card. So we're gonna be trading expeditions, and I have my bureaucrat set up. They weren't even able to set up a bureaucrat, probably just not having one in hand, kind of with a little bit of an awkward draw. Yeah, that's not great for Isis, but pretty good for us going into like these ending days of this game. This playmat that I have, it's actually from my team. So I'm a member of the Exalts. You'll see that before my name as well. It's one of the first altered teams that was made. It was just like a lot of people who really like got excited about the game back when the Kickstarter was happening, and we all wanted to just like kind of come together and create a community where there can be like tournaments and events for people to play in. So it was like some of the first leagues and competitions, and yeah, just like some of the first discussions and things around Altered. Since then, there's actually the Altered Aces. So the Altered Aces took down Neuro's an Altered Ace, and they took down the Angers event. My team had like 4 people, I think, in the top 16, but we actually weren't able to pull it all out. Maybe I can get one for my team this event. We'll see if it works that way. But yeah, this playmat, it is from my team. This image is kind of something that we've taken from the game as kind of like to represent us. So you might see at times if my um, like maybe in some of my other matches or something, if I like move my deck, you might see like it has just like my name and like it says like the exalts in the different corners and things. So yeah, it's a pretty nice mat. Up against me, we actually see the Ada Lovelace Kickstarter play mat, which turned out gorgeous. So yeah, that's really cool as well. My favorite unique is back. We've got, let's see, we've got, I'm trying to just pull up the image. We've got the Frog Prince again. Yeah, that is a good card to see at this time. It's a really low investment of a sleep, and it can let me capitalize. I'm already 3 ahead in stats on the board, so it's going to be pretty easy for me to put pretty much every card I play for the rest of this day to sleep while still putting enough stats on the board to at least trade with my opponent. So I'm going to be able to bank a lot of advantage here and be in a pretty good position. Yeah, this is incredible pressure. Either way, I'll either have a great board going into the next day or maybe even just take it all here. You're going to see the fist bump. And yeah, ISIS recognizes it, probably with the cards in hand, just knowing that there's no way to get over the Frog Princess token in my currently established board. I'm going to take down the event, win the first major tournament in North America, and be leaving with those 5 displays. It's been months and months coming. If you've watched my channel, you've seen I've been making content since last March. My first video came out, I believe, getting ready for this day to take down my first in-person event. So proud to be able to make it here, and huge congrats to ISIS. Only losing to me this whole tournament. It was a great match. I feel like things went my way here, but it could easily have been either one of us taking this event down. Make sure to check out their channel and go check out their deck profile. But yeah, what an amazing tournament. What an amazing blessing. I've been looking forward to this for so long and really just practicing and looking at the meta to prepare. I've been trying to share all of what I've learned with you all and share my top decks and lists. And yeah, I'm glad it could culminate in me being able to kind of prove all of the effort wasn't for nothing and taking down this event. I'm really glad that I was able to bring you these replays as well. Thanks to the person that lent me their tripod to be able to record this. Yeah, I'm glad that we can get the footage out there so that you can all learn from these games and kind of just see these top decks in action. Make sure to watch out this coming week. I'm going to have those 4 or so, maybe even more, depending on how many I can get deck profiles coming your way with the top decks for several different heroes. Yeah, you'll be seeing my list, one of the top 8 Fen lists. Yeah, and that Kojo and Trace list as well. So yeah, be watching out for all of that. Watch out for my also just tournament breakdown where I'm going to be having all of like the decks showing their representation in Swiss and the top cut. And watch out for the podcast. We'll be going over the event this week, so you'll see that come out around Monday from the Altered Insights podcast, and you can kind of hear about my experience, my thoughts on the meta, the event, and all of those things. Yeah, this was a great event, and thanks so much to Gamers Guild for putting it on, for Equinox for all that they do, and yeah, for sending some representatives to have all the fun of side events. Thanks to my friend Fane, he came in 10th after only playing this game for around 2 weeks. Brought Trace, did an amazing job, only lost to Warus. It was so fun to be able to play in the event with him, and yeah, I just had like a buddy there. Thanks to all those who helped me get these uniques, a Holy Relic and a Guy Trine. I actually used the cards that I was able to get from them and all the others too who traded cards with me, even if I didn't get to use them for this event. Hopefully I'll be able to, yeah, use those on my channel or sometime in the future. And I want to give a special thanks to my wife and my family. They've been so supportive. This channel takes a ton of time, but they've been behind me all the way. If you made it this far, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you back here soon, and thanks for watching.